Welcome one, welcome all. We are broadcasting live again today. We are in Minneapolis, and today's the final day here at the Hewing Hotel, downtown Minneapolis. Today's a good one. We got Peter Bukowski from the Locked On Packers podcast going to be joining us. Our own Mike Clemens is going to be here today as we get you ready for the Green Bay Packers draft upcoming. And then about an hour from now, we're going to have live here in, I don't want to call it our studio, albeit one of the conference centers here at the Hewing Hotel. We are going to be joined by my good buddy Paul Charchian. And for those that remember Charch is always with us during football season on Thursdays doing all the fantasy football, but he also does draft analysis as well. Had a great time with him last night. He and his wife, Roxy, we ended up going with them to Manny's, famous Manny's Steakhouse. Had a great time there last night. And probably ate way too much, but we had a really good time. And so Paul, who is now, by the way, not only does he have the GuillotineLeagues.com, but he's got Guillotine Leagues. He is on KFan with Paul Allen, the voice of the Minnesota Vikings. He does some radio stuff, and then in addition to all the radio that he does around the country for his Guillotine Leagues and for the fantasy football stuff, well, like he does with us on Thursdays, he also is now a teacher at the University of Minnesota, teaching broadcast classes and journalism classes. So we're going to get Paul on coming up here in about an hour from now. So we're going to talk with him. But we got a good one today. We're going to talk a lot about the NFL draft. But I do want to step back for a minute. First of all, with them needing a win, Zach LaVine, also Alex Caruso, both of those guys out for the Chicago Bulls coming up tonight. This should be the Bucks in 5, and it should be over with. I said the Bucks will win the series 4-1. It looks, I got to admit, after that first loss the Bucks took, after game 1 where they looked a little rusty, game 2 in which they got beat, I thought, this is going to be more of a series than maybe what I thought it was going to be. I'm pleasantly wrong in that particular sense. The Bucks have stormed back even without Chris Middleton, and they have played inspired basketball. And between Bobby Portis hitting and Grayson Allen hitting, and the fact that you know Giannis is pretty much undeniable at this point, and all the surrounding cast members, it's been a lot of fun to watch. Tonight, as long as they're not looking ahead to the Boston Celtics, tonight should be it at the Fiserv Forum for the Bucks to get a win, end this series, put Chicago out of their misery, and then move on. We'll wait and see what actually happens, but tonight should be it. Last night, a huge night at the ball yard. Willie Adames went off 7 RBIs last night. That has not been done since Christian Yelich did it back in 2019. And every batter for the Milwaukee Brewers last night had a base knock, except for Christian Yelich, who continues to struggle at the plate. And we can get into that discussion as well. And then the Timberwolves with a monumental collapse last night. I was listening to the radio coming in this morning. And one thing that's not being given is John Moran, I thought, had a fantastic game last night. And for Memphis Grizzlies to come storming back in that contest as we sat there and watched it was on one hand, it was like, wow, just how many mishaps can the Timberwolves have? They don't have the tenacity. They don't have the energy. I mean, you're up and you let that thing get away, and then the energy on the road obviously seemed to hinder you. But, man, to see that game just kind of get frittered away and Karl Anthony Towns just kind of go passively into that good night. Now, he's taking the brunt because he's the face of the franchise. He's taking the brunt of the argument this morning. I get it. But, man, just to not see the tenacity and the grit and the want out of the Minnesota Timberwolves last night, and to watch John Morant and company get past them was rather interesting. But I'm interesting in the sense of we're sitting at the bar last night watching all of this unfold, and just watching Minnesota fans just palm to forehead like, holy crap, what the hell, here we go again. So anyway, that was the night last night. We're only one day away from the NFL draft, from the beginning of the NFL draft. And I want to remind you that on many of these same stations coming up tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Central Time, we're going to take to the airwaves. If we are not carried on your local station, I'm encouraging you now to go and track us down on the download the app. WOZN, the Zone out of Madison. Download the app, and you'll get all the coverage beginning tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Central Time. Just tap on the app. You're good to go. Or follow us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Bill Michaels Show. YouTube.com. You can subscribe absolutely free. And we're going to post it later on today. So tomorrow, with about 3 minutes to go before the show actually goes on the air, you're going to get a reminder, and it's going to say, hey, we're about to go live. You can tap on the app, and then it pops right up. You can get all the sound. You can get the video and everything. We're going to have Mike Clemens live up at Lambeau Field. Ben Kenny's going to be running the show out in Madison. I'm going to be back in the main studios. So we're going to have a good time tomorrow night breaking down pick by pick the NFL draft. Looking forward to it. And yes, Taylor, Facebook Live is going to be up for that as well. So we got all of that coming up tomorrow. I got all of that coming up tomorrow. So, and if you want to follow us on Facebook Live, go to facebook.com/The Bill Michaels Show. And it'll pop up, and all you got to do is follow us or like us. We prefer you to like us there, but follow us there, and you'll get all that notification there as well. So plenty of ways to stay in touch with the program. Coming up tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Central. Ben Kenny's going to be handling the program tomorrow during the day, as we're going to be making our way back from the Twin Cities. And then tomorrow night we'll be live and in person, 7 o'clock Central. Get whatever it is you're going to grill. Whatever it is you're going to do, whatever it is you're going to eat, whatever it is you're going to drink, get it together, gather it up, and then we're going to bring you all the coverage of the 2022 NFL Draft, first to last pick of the first round, coming up tomorrow night live. Good stuff. How's your day today, Ben?
Oh, it's been okay.
Yeah?
I just finished my coffee, so in like 20 minutes, it'll be a good day, but we're still getting there.
I figured before you go into the studio and see Ebo, I would figure that you would probably have a couple of coffees in you by then, just to handle that situation.
Yeah, today was a beer day as well. Luckily, it stayed on the rails for the most part, but I don't know. I love mornings. I just don't function well until maybe 10:25, and then the system's fire. Is
there any possible way the Bucs lose this contest tonight?
No.
I can't imagine, unless DeRozan goes for 60, I can't imagine any way the Bucs lose this game tonight. Because Caruso has been that pesky defender that has just been kind of like a thorn in their ass. And obviously, Levine is fantastic, and DeRozan is fantastic, but Levine's out, Caruso's out. You've got nothing but DeRozan left. I can't imagine him dropping 60 on him. So I don't know how they're going to come up with so many points to be able to knock off a Bucs team who is just playing some really good basketball right now. And it seems to be hitting on all cylinders when it comes to their offense as well. So I don't know how they're going to lose this game if they possibly could. I think the prediction holds true. Bucs in 5. They win the series 4-1, and then they move on. Now, the question that I've been asked all night last night, as Timberwolves fans watch their team go down like the Titanic, is when the Celtics come to town, what kind of a matchup is it going to be for the Bucs? How tough is it going to be for the Bucs? I think this might be the Eastern Conference Finals when the Bucs match up against the Celtics. Do you agree?
Oh, 100%. Grant Bills and I were talking about that on Monday.
Yeah.
And he's a huge NBA guy, knows more about the league than I do. But definitely, I think the winner of this series has a ticket booked pretty much to the finals.
Yeah, I get the sense. As much as I think Miami can be pesky, I think this is the series. This is, you get past the Celtics, and it's over. I think it's over.
It kind of feels like
finals.
Last year's series against the Nets, right?
Right.
The winner of that was probably going to represent the East.
And here's the other aspect of all of this. I want to see the Bucs not only win because I want the Bucs to win, but again, going back to the four-letter network, did you see Stephen A. Smith said the Bucs are not going to go to the finals? He doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to go to Milwaukee. He threw the brats out, and he made fun of the new mayor of Milwaukee, and he said it doesn't matter. He's not going back to Milwaukee because the Bucs aren't going to the finals anyway. So he's not worried about it.
You really want to be in Milwaukee,
right?
We're gonna start that old thing again.
No. I mean, the Bucs and the mayor, the new mayor of Milwaukee, sent a care package that was on display on First Take. I mean, they were going through the whole thing. They were pulling out brats, and they were pulling out shirts, and they were pulling out all these different things in this big Bucs basket. Stephen A. Smith literally said on the air, he threw them away. He said, and he calls them brats. He doesn't want any brats. Not brats, brats. And he said, I don't want those damn brats. He said, quite frankly, they're not that damn good anyway. So I want to see. Now it's a shtick. Now it's, I'm going to hate on that city. So when he comes to Milwaukee, Milwaukee hates on him. He wants that boo. He wants that energy. He wants that negative side of things. And now it's a foregone conclusion that he has said over and over again, the Bucks are not going to the finals. They're not good enough. And without Chris Middleton, they can't get past the Celtics, and on and on and on. So he doesn't think they're that good anyway. So he is. So there's two reasons. One, personally, you just want to see the Bucks win. And secondly, I want to see the Bucks win despite Stephen A. Smith. Just so he then again has to come to Milwaukee to be proven wrong over and over and over again, which would be fantastic. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. A lot of things to get to today. We're going to talk a lot of Packers football, a lot of NFL draft today, yes. But there's one thing we got to talk about. And again, it's a day. It's a game. But you got to start looking at this. And you got to think to yourself, what the hell? You know, which was a huge – today I did the morning show with Dave Carney in La Crosse, and we did a segment there today. And a lot of the segment was dedicated to the fact that at what point do you really start to say, I've got a concern, as more and more and more people begin to mount with concerns. We're going to talk about that coming up here in just a little bit. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Bud Light. They are the official beer sponsor of the Bill Michaels Sports Talk Network. And don't forget, they have got it with a pop of soda. Yes, they do. They have done it right. It is so good. And it's their loudest flavors ever. Classic Cola, Cherry Cola, Citrus Soda, Orange Soda. Bud Light has nailed it, and they got it right, and all with zero sugars. That's right, all with zero sugars. Enjoy responsibly. That is our friends from Bud Light and Bud Light Hard Soda. Glad to have them aboard, as always. And they're going to also bring you the coverage tomorrow night of the NFL draft on many of these same stations. Let's do this. We're going to step away. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. Want to get into last night. And I'm getting more and more and more tread towards this direction of can't wait anymore. And I'm here to say, let's just pump the brakes. But I get it because the car is starting to roll downhill in a very negative direction. Stay tuned. We got a lot more of the Bill Michaels Show coming up right after this.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Indy cars are running. Get your ticket to see them scream around the road course in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. For event information, go to roadamerica.com. That is roadamerica.com.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
A career high for Willie Adames, 7 RBIs in the game.
Welcome back to the program. A big night last night for Willie Adames and the Milwaukee Brewers, who get a big win, and they now hold sole ownership of the top spot in the National League Central. 11-7 overall, behind, or ahead of, I should say, the St. Louis Cardinals, who were 9-7. Brewers are one game better in the games back column, so to speak. Willie Adames, over his 5-year career, he's got 67 home runs. And up until last night, he had never had a multi-home run game. Last night, he went yard. Not once, but twice. Twice. Had a huge game last night. And the Brewers ended up knocking off the Pirates in a 12-8, kind of a hitter's duel last evening. Adames hit a 2-run blast in the first inning, and a 3-run drive during the 6-run 6th inning for the Brewers. It was his first multi-homer game. He had a 2-run double, by the way, in the 5th inning, and he finished 4 for 5. And his batting average went 45 points upward. 45 points upward last night in that contest. Now, when you start to go through the rest of the box score last evening, you start to look and you go, boy, everybody was sticking the ball last night. What a good night. The crew got the job done. You're liking it. You're kind of going through this whole thing, and you're looking at Colton Wong, who went 2 for 4, and Willie Adames was 4 for 5, and 1 for 4 was McCutchen, 2 for 4 was Rowdy Tellez, 1 for 5 was Tyrone Taylor, 2 for 5 Narvaez, 1 for 4 Low Kane, 1 for 4 Peterson. Who went 0 for? 0 for 5 last night. 0 for 5 last night was Christian Yelich. So this morning, well, kind of last night, coming back from dinner, and then this morning, I started getting some emails, and a couple people, a couple buddies were hitting me up with text messages and, saying, at what point do we really start to become concerned about Christian Yelich? It's too long. This is ridiculous, and on and on and on. And while I understand, and I really do, I understand where people's angst is when it comes to Christian Yelich. I get it, that it's starting to become concerning. 100%. I get it. Average is down to 180. Slugging percentage is 295. The on-base percentage is now at 278 and continues to fall. Okay, I understand all of that. Okay? And I've said this all along, I just wait until he gets to about 100 at-bats. I know I said 50 early, and some of you are kind of holding me to that, and I understand it. Look, I'm not going to argue with you. He's got 61 at-bats on the season. He's 39 away from reaching 100 at-bats. But at what point do you become legitimately concerned that it's not going to happen? It's just he's not coming back. He's not going to be the Christian Yelich from 2018, 2019. At what point do you go, boy, yeah, not going to happen. This isn't happening. I am still holding out, I guess, a little bit of hope. And I really believe something has got to spark things. Something has got to make a difference here. Either the home runs, the average, just the juggernaut he went on a few years back in back-to-back seasons, one in which he won the MVP and the other in which he was a runner-up to the MVP. Either those were complete flukes and apparitions, and this is what he is, or something has just happened, and it's gone. But at what point do you look at it and go, yeah, he doesn't have it? Because to me, this is the prove-it year. To me, this is the prove-it year. I know some of you say, well, you got to give it time. It's a 10-year contract and all that kind of stuff. And I get it. I understand that. I'm not arguing that fact. But at some point, you got to go, it is what it is. Do I believe we're there yet? No, I don't believe we're there yet. I know some of you are already there. So you're so pissed. You can't believe he's batting third. You can't believe he's batting up in the lineup. Sit him, get rid of him, pay him off, get him out of here. I get all of that, okay? You can't. Being a small market team, you can't. You can't just throw the money away. You're not the Yankees. And it's with every at-bat, with every bad at-bat, people are getting upset about it. What I look to is first of all, the article that was written, that's over on the Facebook fan page, you can get it, about Christian Yelich and about the number of balls that are batted that are hard. They're batted hard in play, okay? Because last night, 0 for 5, but not a strikeout. But some of the at-bats that he went after, he looked like he didn't guess right. He didn't know which pitch was coming. There was the one that he chopped back to the pitcher, and it was just kind of, oh, excuse me. He was thinking fastball, and they threw him a breaking ball. He just looked like he was off. The timing of his swing was off. But as we discussed, when he does hit the ball hard, he's hitting it into the ground. He's hitting hard ground balls. He's not hitting rockets that are finding the gap. He's hitting hard ground balls. So I'm not there. I'm not jumping off the buildings yet. I'm not throwing in the towel on Christian Yelich, but we're getting close. We're getting close. And the Brewers are going to say all the right things. He's our guy. He's one of our leaders. We have faith in him. We need him to bounce back. All of that. They're going to say it all. But what you say don't necessarily, nor do words equal reaction. It's not everything that's been said, everything that's been positive, all the positive feedback they've given him. Christian looks good. Christian's healthy. Christian's got a good swing. Christian's hitting the ball hard. The bottom line is the results just aren't there. Say what you want with all the positive reinforcement. The results just aren't there. So am I there yet? Am I jumping off the bridge? No. But are we lining up? Yeah. We're getting there. We're getting there. Tyler said he also watches way too many pitches. He needs to be aggressive at the plate. Matt says the same thing, being too patient. He needs to be more aggressive at the plate, swing at the first pitch if he has to. Jeff says maybe take some pressure off and try Yelich in the 7th or 8th hole. He's a detriment to the offense right now in that 2 and 3 spot. Tyler says move him to the bottom of the batting order. Dan says, how long can you let this go on? Everybody over on the Facebook fan page and the Bud Light live stream, we appreciate it. Following us on YouTube and Twitch TV as well. I agree. I don't know how much longer you can let this go on. And here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. The excuses, it really makes... I know there's some faith there, and I know you have to handle things with kid gloves, and I know that you have to handle things so you don't demean a veteran, not to mention a veteran on your team that is kind of your, quote, team leader. But at some point, don't you look at counsel as a fan, maybe not inside that clubhouse, but as a fan, and say, man, you're losing some credibility here. But you can only make excuses for Christian Yelich for so long. Now, I'm not saying today's the day you have to make a change, but it's coming. It's coming. 877-867-1670. 877-867-1670. If you want to find us, please go ahead and do so. If you got a comment, bring it. Would love to see you over on Twitter at Bill_Michaels, at Bill_Michaels. And Mike says, why can't we send Yelich down? He's out of options. He doesn't have the options, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he has and if he doesn't have the options, you can't just send him down. You'd have to cut him loose and then have him accept an assignment down in the minors before you could just, and I'll check, but I'm pretty sure that that you can't just cut him loose, that Christian Yelich is out of options. Yeah, he doesn't have any options available. So you can't just send him down. 877. Now, if it was an injury rehab, you can. If he suddenly came up, and which is true, if he ends up coming up with an injury of some type, yeah, no doubt. Then you can end up sending him down until he kind of gets right again. And there could be that, quote, mysterious injury, so to speak. And he ends up going down because of that. But, is what it is. 877-867-1670. 877-867-1670. If you want to find us, do it. Tyler says Yelich has not been the same since he broke his leg in Miami. The kneecap. When he busted up on the kneecap. He's not been the same. I agree with you. That was the day that, the music died, so to speak. I don't know if it's the kneecap. I don't know if he got into a bad habit. But what I do know is that batting-wise has not been the same. Last year, you had that brief stretch, middle of the season, where he looked really good. He looked like he might be coming back. He looked like, I'm not going to say the Christian Yelich of old, but at least he looked like he was on the right path, where he started to raise the average. He started to hit the ball with consistency. He was going the opposite way. Remember, he laid down a bunt. They had the shift on, and he laid down a bunt in the opposite way, going down a third base line. And it really kind of ignited a rally. And that seemed to spark the team. It seemed to spark him. And off they went, man. And it went on this 3.5 week tear where he was hitting the ball. Now, in that particular range, he only had 1, maybe 2 home runs. It wasn't like it was a lot. But you can kind of see Christian Yelich was somewhat back. He looked more comfortable. He had a swagger to him at the plate. And then after that, it was gone. Didn't see it anymore. Just kind of went by the wayside. So, and you're right to a certain extent, Tyler. He says pitchers now also know they kind of figured him out, so he needs to change things up. And that I can agree with, too. Something needs to happen. But I just right now, to me, he looks like at times he's guessing. And usually when you're taking pitches that are strikes early on, sometimes you can say you're kind of sizing up the pitcher. You're kind of getting a feel for his delivery, release point, velocity, whatever it happens to be. You're looking at that, okay? But also, you can look at it and go, well, you know what? Maybe he's just trying to figure out what's being thrown to him. And especially when you allow pitchers to get ahead in the count, first ball, fastball, right down Wisconsin Avenue, when you get guys ahead in the count, then you're at their mercy. And there's a lot of times where he'll try to battle his way back from being down in the count. He has taken some walks, don't get me wrong. So he has had a decent eye, but there are times he gets behind in the count, and it looks like at times he's just guessing. Stay tuned. We got a lot more of the Bill Michaels Show. It's coming up right after this.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Buy more, save more with a patio door.
Wait, what?
Right now, at Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin, the more windows you buy, the more you'll be saving by adding a patio door.
Miss Della from Pella?
Please, call me Gina.
Okay, Gina Della from Pella? Like, I was told there'd be no math.
Like, that's okay. Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin makes it easy. Now through April 30th, when you buy 3 Pella windows, you'll save $500 when you add a patio door. Buy 6, save $1,000 with a patio door. Buy a dozen Pella windows, save $2,000 when you...
Add a patio door?
Correct. And along with 6 full lines of windows, traditional to contemporary, Pella of Wisconsin has financing to fit most any budget.
Awesome.
Buy more, save more with a patio door, but only through April 30th. Set your free consultation today at PellaWI.com.
Certain restrictions apply. See showroom for details.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Phil Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
.com. They are a quality machining and manufacturing company right here in our own backyard in New Berlin, Wisconsin. And if you're looking for a great company to work for, they are hiring great benefits, and they're just paying to get people in the door. Again, that's Pindel. Go to Pindel.com, Pindel, Pindel.com. That is Pindel.com. Talking about Christian Yelich. I'll post this over on the Facebook fan page and on Twitter, but a great article from Sports Illustrated called What Went Wrong with Christian Yelich and Cody Bellinger. And it takes a look at both guys who were on such an epic run back in 2019. And as the article says, they were playing a game of statistical horse in the season. I mean, both guys were going pound for pound, swing for swing. It was an amazing display of the five-tool prowess. Yelich and Bellinger were crushing the ball. 300 batting average or better, 400 slugging percentage, 600 or better OPS and such. Their on-base percentages were high, 44 home runs, 15 stolen bases. I mean, it marked the first season in which two players so young reached those levels. Only four players under the age of 27 preceded them, which was Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, Ken Griffey Jr., and Chipper Jones. I mean, that's rare air right there. So you start talking about these guys walking in the footsteps of first ballot Hall of Famers. And as it says, Yelly and Belly seem destined for greatness. And both guys have fallen off so bad. Take a listen to this. Rarely have players crashed so far so fast. Since the start of the 2020 season, 210 players have taken 500 plate appearances. Yelich ranks 177th in batting, and Bellinger 205th. Now, remember, 210 players, that's it, have batted 500 or more plate appearances since 2020. Bellinger ranks 205th. Yelich ranks 177th. So they took a dive into both of their kind of swings and their analytics and their perspective. And they said, look, Yelich was a good hitter in Miami. He broke out with those two huge seasons after the trade to Milwaukee, hitting .327 with a .415 on-base percentage and a .651 slugging percentage. He slugged .699 at home, .569 on the road. But what the health tells us is when he broke the kneecap, he in 2019, that changed things. And then he missed 3 weeks with a sore back in 2021. Came back, played a game, then missed another 2 weeks with the same back ailment. His back has really troubled him since his days in the minor leagues. And Brewers president David Stearns at the end of the season said clearly he wasn't right this year. We all remember that. But his launch angle, they say when you look at the consistent ability to put the ball in the air, Christian Yelich in 2019 had a launch angle of 11.3. Ground ball percentage was 42.8%, and his exit velocity was 93.3 miles an hour. Last year, his launch angle went from 11.3 to 7.1. The amount of ground balls went from 42% to 51.6%, and his exit velocity still stayed about the same. Actually, it got a little bit better. It was 94 as opposed to 93.3. Then you bring on 2021. The launch angle went from 11.3 in 2019 to 2.8, a severe decline to 2021. The ground balls went up from 42.8% in 2019 to 55.7% last season. And the exit velocity has gone from 93 to 94, now down to 91. And when you look at the ability, because they put side-by-sides together, and they're minuscule. You don't notice a drastic change. But you can look at it and look like in the one from 2019, Yelich is stable at the plate. He's got a good base. He's steady. He's solid. In the 2020, same pitch, same arm angle, same plate appearance, same spot for the baseball. Yelich is off balance. He's trying to coil, but it looks like he's like leaning back. And they said this is consistent. And it's an overcompensation for the inability to coil up because of the back injury, and this developed into a bad habit. So when you look at both pitchers and both descriptions, the one result, July 14th, 2019, the result of the pitch was a home run to center field, distance 418 feet, launch angle 21 degrees. Exit velocity at that time was 106.3 miles per hour. The same pitch, same area, same site, same swing. The result was a ground out to first base. The distance traveled was basically 2 feet. It was chopped into the ground. The launch angle was a minus 52 degrees. And the exit velocity was 82.8%, or 82.8 miles per hour. That's a big difference in what Christian Yelich has been doing versus what now we've come accustomed to. That's why if he can't correct this, which I still feel it's correctable, as long as the back ailment hasn't changed his ability to swing. It's one thing if it's a habit. It's another thing if you physically can't swing that same way anymore. And you can't get the same exit velocity off of the baseball. And you can't swing with the same launch angle off of the baseball. Then it's completely different. Then it's something where if he can't do it, this is what he is. Cody Bellinger's numbers are even worse. Brandon says it sounds like the back still may be bothering him. Scott says Yelich has not been the same since a few of the opposing pitchers say he was stealing pitch signs. And David says, bad habit. Don't they have something like 3 hitting coaches to work with him on stuff like this? What the hell? Yeah, but if you're in a bad habit, it's tough to get out of it. It's like a bad golf swing. You know, you swing similarly. You're trying to correct things. You're trying to, keep your elbow in. You're trying to kind of change your grip. You're rolling your wrists over. It's a controlled chaos that you're trying to re-mimic every time. And it's tough to do. So sometimes you just get in there and grip it and rip it, But it's not the easiest. So this is a really interesting article. I'm not saying that this is 100% the reason why Christian Yelich is not Christian Yelich, but it's a very, very good start. It's a good analytical look at what the problems have been for Christian Yelich. Not to sit here and say that I'm piling on, because as much as anybody, first of all, we have now seen in 2010 the Packers win a championship. We have now seen last year the Bucs win a championship. The next one on the docket is the Brewers. I don't think any of us want to wait any longer. We want to see it now, but we know that Christian Yelich, for this team to get to a World Series and possibly win one, Christian Yelich has to be Christian Yelich. He's got to be a key cog and participant for this team to succeed. So we want him to succeed. So it's not piling on, but at some point you got to go, what is it just gone? Is there the reality of we just have to accept it that it's no more and move on? 877-867-1670. 877-867-1670. Hit us up. Stay tuned. We got more of the Bill Michaels Show coming up next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Eight seven seven 1670. Hit us up. Here's the question, John. This is getting to the point we were talking about this a little bit earlier, John. That at what point do you decide to move him down in the lineup? If you're talking about Christian Yelich, at what point would you look to Craig Counsell and say, okay, you know what? There's the reason they haven't already. There's a fine line. You don't want to take a veteran, a guy that's supposedly a clubhouse leader, one of your guys, your mainstays, and supposedly disrespect them by moving them down. You know, you want to give them every opportunity. To the other guys in the clubhouse, you want to appear like you're going to do anything and everything for your guy, that you're going to give him every opportunity to swing out of it, that you're going to look to these guys and say, we believe in you, all of that. You never want to be reactionary when you talk about veteran players who can then become disgruntled and become problems. Not to say that Christian Yelich would, but can become problems in your clubhouse, okay? So at some point, when you approach 100 at-bats, and he's sitting at 61 right now, when you approach 100 at-bats, you probably look at this and say, if things are still the same or worse, okay? Still the same or worse, and Christian Yelich is batting 180 with a 278 on base percentage and an OPS of only 573, which is just awful. And his power numbers are zilch. He's got 1 home run in the season. If you're looking at that and it's either the same or worse at 100 at bats, I think at that point in time you say, you know what? Yeah, we're gonna start doing what's best for the team. We got some things. We got some decisions we have to make. And then you can sit him down and you can say, we've done everything we can. Let's take the pressure off. Let's get you out of this portion of the lineup. You knew this was coming. Any player in Major League Baseball knows that if you're not producing near the top of the lineup, you're going down. So we'll move you down in the lineup, and then he can accept it and can say, you know what, I'm 100 at-bats into this thing, and I'm not getting any better. Maybe reevaluate the back issue. Who knows? But I know there's many of you that say whether it was sign stealing or the roids or PEDs, whatever it is you want to call it, that's fine. I mean, you don't have any proof of that. What you do know is he suffered a back injury. He had a broken kneecap. He hasn't been the same since. Those things coincide with one another, where you don't really know anything else beyond that other than what speculation, rumor, and innuendo are. So stick with what we know. And if it's a back issue and maybe some bad habits were developed, then maybe you hope at some point he's able to swing through this and get out of it. 877-867-1670. 877-867-1670. Complicated fella says maybe Yelich should then go to the coach and say, move me down. He knows he's struggling. Everybody knows he's struggling. Go ahead. Randy says he got his payday and he hasn't been the same since. You can't really look at, I've always said, while pay creates expectation, pay does not create results. Two different things. You get the money based upon what you've done and what your potential is. That creates the expectation. But just because you get paid never doesn't mean you're equaling results. But the problem is you're in the smallest media market in all of baseball. You're not the Yankees. You can't just say, you know what, he's not getting it done. Talk to you later. We're going to throw you out with the bathwater there. Go find your send you on an assignment, and if you don't accept it, then you're a free agent. Go somewhere else, see if the grass is greener. You can't afford to do that. You invested a lot of money in Christian Yelich if you're the Brewers, and you got to drop to your knees, say a novena, start showing up to church rather than just on Sunday every damn day of the week, and hope that this guy suddenly comes back and start hitting the baseball all over again. 877-867-1670. Hit us up if you want to do so. Ricky says, look at Balaga, and now let's watch Z in Minnesota. Another back issue story. Never the same, always issues after the fact. Speaking of Zadarius Smith, I saw him yesterday over at the Mall of America. He was walking around. He had some things like bags of stuff, was shopping with his wife and picked some stuff up for his kids. Just walking through the Mall of America. We were kind of passing each other on an escalator near Legoland yesterday. 877-867-1670. Ben, what did he say?
Someone called in and brought up Yelich seeing a sports psychologist, that a lot of it could just be upstairs, still being held back from the injuries and all that.
I'm sure when you go through slumps of any kind, I am sure that sports psychologists, because teams now have them on retainers, so to speak. They now have them in their stable. So if you have issues, they've got people that they talk to, I'm sure. I don't know if that's up to Yelich or if it's up to the team. I don't know who does that. To say, hey, you may want to go talk to this person or that person and get in your head a little bit to see what's going on. I still think, and this is just my opinion, but I still think he's just off. He's struggling. He's now back to pressing. He looks like he's guessing wrong sometimes at the plate. And granted, no, pitchers will every now and then just mess you up. That's what they're paid to do. So give them credit. But there are times when he just has bad plate appearances. Gets behind in the count, looks like he's guessing, and then just kind of flails at the baseball. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, as a guy who also shattered his kneecap playing a high level of softball and still hasn't physically or mentally recovered, I stand with Yelich. It's hard to come back from that. It's hard to get back on the field and, get back to the player you used to be. I'm in that boat still. That was 5 years ago.
So what you're saying is maybe you and Yelich should have rehabbed together.
Well, that was my problem, is I didn't really rehab at all.
Okay.
I just didn't do anything.
Yeah, when you break a kneecap, you can't just drink, man. I'm just throwing it out there. Drinking doesn't really necessarily cure anything. It can help you forget. It can help the pain go away, but it's not much of a rehab assignment when you're just told after your kneecap is busted to go. Now, you do have to stretch it walking from the bar to the bathroom and back. I give you credit on that. But otherwise, you're not really exercising anything but your elbow.
Yeah, well, that's a very valid point. Mentally, though, I stand with Yelich.
Mentally,
these are tough injuries to come back.
Mentally, you stand with Yelich. Yes,
former high-level professional athlete in intramural softball.
Intramural softball will get you every damn time, so you got to be careful. Yeah. Coming up in the next hour, we got all kinds of Packers talk. We're going to get into the NFL draft. Our buddy Paul Charchian here on site, going to join us inside the boardroom here at the Ewing Hotel in Minneapolis. We're going to talk with Peter Bukowski from the Locked On Packers podcast. Coming up the last hour of the program, our good buddy Mike Clemens is going to be here. Mike's going to be live tomorrow night at Lambeau Field in Green Bay, and we're going to talk with him about what to expect tomorrow night. And remember, tomorrow, don't forget, on many of these network stations, 7 o'clock Eastern or 7 o'clock Central Time, we go live. It's the NFL Draft 2022 version. We'll give you pick-by-pick coverage, all the trades, all the analysis, everything coming up tomorrow night. Mike Clemens, like I said, live at Lambeau Field. So we're going to get you down inside the bowels of that joint to figure out what's going on at the inside the walls at 1265. But tomorrow, if you don't get it on many of these local stations, download the app, WOZN, the Zone in Madison. Download the app, and you'll get it, or you subscribe to us over on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Bill Michaels Show. Stay tuned. Got Paul Charchian going to be joining us live and in person. Coming up next on the Bill Michaels Show.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Last night, the Milwaukee Brewers scored its most runs this season on its way to a 12-8 victory over the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, most of those runs came off the bat of Willie Adames. The shortstop had a pair of homers, a 2-run shot in the first inning, and a 3-run bomb in the sixth, as he knocked in a career-high 7 runs, which tied the team record. It was the first multi-home run game of his career, and his 4 hits tied his high for a game. Now sitting at 11-7, the Brewers are first place in the NL Central. Same teams, Pirates, Brewers, tonight in Pittsburgh. First pitch is at 5:35. To the NBA, tonight the Milwaukee Bucks are looking to close out their first-round playoff series against the Bulls. Game 5 is 6:30 tonight. Here's more from head coach Mike Budenholzer on potentially punching their ticket to the second round.
Yeah, no, you just got to go play. We got to play on Wednesday. Expect to have to play our best and give our best effort, and competitive spirit's got to be there in a big way on Wednesday.
If the Bucks do advance, the Boston Celtics will be waiting for them in the second round.
Your work-life balance is important to you, and Sutton Transport agrees. Sutton Transport offers a 5-day work week. Same start times daily, and you'll be home nightly and on weekends. Sutton Transport is now hiring CDL drivers and forklift operators for all shifts. Enjoy some of the best benefits in the industry. Consistent year-round work, twice-a-year wage increases, and enjoy your family time you deserve. That is work-life balance. The road to success is with Sutton Transport. Apply at suttontrans.com.
The NFL's draft is set for tomorrow in Las Vegas, and the Green Bay Packers hold 4 picks in the top 59 overall. Packers GM Brian Gutekunst talks on trusting his work while dealing with rumors and smokescreens during draft week.
I think you got to trust your work. You know, Ted and Ron, everybody, we always have a saying in the draft room, let's know what we know and know what we don't know. And you have to be honest about that when you're in there. If there's things you don't know, and you have to be able to move on and pass if you don't know.
For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of the Bill Michaels Show. We are broadcasting live. We're in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Just today. Tomorrow, getting back into the home studio. And then tomorrow night, we have the NFL Draft. And we'll bring you all that coverage starting at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. So make sure, as they say, you set your dial and set the time. And make sure you take a listen on many of these same network stations. Joining us here in our makeshift studio inside the Ewing Hotel in Minneapolis, our good buddy Paul Charchian. How you been, man?
I've been fantastic. It's the best week of the year for me. I mean, I love the NFL Draft because you have unparalleled drama in a way you don't get any other time of the year.
Right.
I mean, nothing else is like this. Even the other drafts aren't like this. The baseball draft is nothing like this.
Well, let me say this. It was 1 year ago tomorrow that I got the phone call from you, and it said, hey, you may want to take a listen to Paul Allen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's when the drama began.
Yeah, and you were already having a bad day, and
right.
then that whole thing dropped about Aaron Rodgers not wanting to be a Packer. Then you took all kinds of heat because you listened to a Viking person telling you that Aaron Rodgers didn't want to be a Packer, and were ultimately vindicated. And now, although that is not, maybe for your listeners, that's the weirdest, most bizarre draft day event ever, but nothing like Laramie Tunsil.
No. God, no.
I mean, to me, this is about the weirdest thing that's ever happened in a live moment. And I think for somebody like you were probably in a similar position, but mine was, I'm at the official Vikings draft party, myself and Paul Allen on stage in front of thousands of people when this hits. And you're looking at it going, can I run with this?
Right.
This is from Laramie Tunsil's own account of a guy smoking a bong through a gas mask.
Right.
And I'm watching the video going, it's not him. It's not him. It's not him. And then he lifts up the gas mask and you're like, oh, it's him.
Right.
So what do you do in that moment?
Exactly.
Oh, I've never seen anything quite like that before in the moment.
I'm trying to think. I mean, that's draft day mishaps. I mean, we've obviously had the Eugene Robinson the night before the Super Bowl when he picked up a hooker after doing the prayers. And we had Stanley Wilson for the Bengals with a pile of blow in his room the night before the Super Bowl. And then the Oakland Raiders
guy who went to Mexico and passed out or whatever.
Yeah, he took off their offensive lineman. So we've had a few weird ones in big moments where guys just flaked out. But yeah,
we still don't know who posted that to Laramie Tunsil's account.
Right. We don't know.
We don't know. He knows, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But we don't know.
Yeah, because there was only so many people in that room and only so many people that had that video.
Yes.
Oh,
how about this one? Another draft day mishap. Right before, now this is like 20 years ago, maybe even more now. Warren Sapp got connected with marijuana use right before the draft. That rumor started to pick up all kinds of steam like the night before the draft or the morning of the draft.
I kind of remember that, yeah.
And Sapp was widely considered to be planning to be one of the first 1, 2, 3 players taken in that draft, probably number 1. And he slipped all the way to Tampa at 10 or something.
Yeah.
Vikings passed on him and took a guy at his position who never amounted to anything.
Yeah.
And we've been kicking ourselves over that mistake for 20 years now.
Yeah. Well, at least you haven't had to deal with the aftermath of Warren Sapp after his playing career and the things that have gone on at the Las Vegas hotel ballrooms and such. So you don't have to worry about that.
Oh, we'd have taken the Hall of Famer. Trust me.
Right. The Hall of Fame side, you'd take in a heartbeat. So let's talk about the NFC North. I mean, Rodgers is coming back, but they've lost 2 wide receivers in MVS and they lost Devontae Adams. You pick up Sammy Watkins. Give me your thoughts as to where their talent level is right now.
Offensively, I love your running game, and your offensive line should come back and be better than last year where everybody played out of position and Bakhtiari was never a factor. And so I think this team needs to be able to be a power running game from time to time based on who you've got right now.
Right.
That'll change in 24 hours. But yeah, it's you've got 2 really good running backs, 2 of the top 15, probably. I would be a much more run-heavy team until Aaron Rodgers is able to get to learn how to utilize the right now meager weapons that he's got.
What do you feel? I mean, what does Sammy Watkins mean to this team?
Nothing. Dude he's at, I don't know, whatever, he's at 5th team. There have been so many other teams that have needed him to step up and be a meaningful contributor, and you just don't get it.
Right.
There's nothing. I don't think there's anything to see here, to be honest. He will be a guy where if you throw a spiral at his chest, he'll probably catch it, and he won't give you a lot more than that. And honestly, right now that counts for something to have a veteran who can catch a pass, but he's not going to change games for you, I don't believe.
What about a guy like, I know Jarvis Landry's asking for a lot of money. And looking at the way the market has changed dramatically after the Adams signing and then the Tyreek Hill signing, he's going to get some money. I don't know if he's going to get what he's asking for. But is he still got gas in the tank, so to speak?
No, not really. I mean, he's a guy.
Or was Cleveland a place where guys go to die and then get a new crew? Because, I mean, look at what OBJ did once he got out with Matthew Stafford.
But the thing on Jarvis Landry, even going back to his Miami days when he was younger and better than he is now, he's a guy who catches the ball somewhere between 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage and 5 yards in front of the line of scrimmage, and then gives you a couple more yards after the catch. And that's it. He's just not anybody. He's at best a chain mover, and he's just not a game-changing kind of player. And I feel like all he would be bringing the Packers is, again, somebody, if you throw a spiral, he'll catch it, and that I don't think he gives you much more than that. So I'd be very leery about making an investment there.
How many do you think the Packers take wide receiver wise in this draft?
One, if one is not taken in the first round, I will be astounded. And nobody's talking about this except me. I think there's a 10, 15, 20% chance they put both picks into wide receiver if the requisite guys fall, because this team needs 2 wide receivers.
Yeah.
And this is a great, the receivers on the high end of this draft are very good. So I would be shocked if there aren't. The 2 is the bare minimum that you come.
Do you buy into the fact that while there are good wide receivers in this draft, there is not a Justin Jefferson, there is not a the Jamar Chase. There's not that level of talent here. There's good ones, but they're not that elite good ones.
Well, keep in mind, Justin Jefferson was picked 25 in the first round. Nobody thought Justin Jefferson was going to be Justin Jefferson.
Right.
But Jameson Williams, assuming the ACL rehab goes well, has all the upside of the elite players in the past couple of years drafts. Yeah. And had he not blown out his ACL,
4.29.
I know. And
Which is wonder, just crazy.
You worry the ACL will sap some of that, Bill, but how much? If he's still like a 4.38 guy, he's still plenty fast. But what made him so special at Alabama was the downfield separation and just running past defenders.
Right.
And so you worry a little bit, does the ACL give him any long-term sap of that speed? And so I think he certainly counts as a receiver that would make some sense to be a potential game changer. And then Chris Olave, Ohio State, is a very, very polished, good receiver who has high-end upside. I like Garrett Wilson even better. Slippery, also very fast. He's a 4.38 guy as well. Yeah. And both Olave and Garrett Wilson, highly productive in that offense, which we love. When you get these super fast players, the worry is always, are they a track star lumbering around in pads and will ultimately never translate, because that happens a lot. But these were highly productive, fast, slippery players with good hands who can adjust to the ball. I think Garrett Wilson will be the first wide receiver taken, and I believe Jameson Williams will be the second.
What do you think about London coming out of USC?
Well, your high end is he is, and there's a scenario where he drops to Green Bay, or Green Bay has to just move up a little bit to get him, and that could happen. Your best case scenario is he's Mike Evans. The big body, the ability to box out, all of the leaping catches, the contested catches, and he's not as slow. He doesn't lumber like a lot of the big-bodied wide receivers, which makes Drake London pretty special, and I love that part of his game. He's got that attitude that says, the ball's coming to me, and I own this catch. And some guys got that, Bill, and some guys don't, and I love that about Drake London. But because he's not a burner, he doesn't have the flashy big play upside that the other guys we were just talking about. I think that suppresses his value for a lot of teams, not all teams. But if you wanted a week 1 contributor ready to help the Packers more than any other receiver in this draft, Drake London's the guy.
So we were talking last night about, okay, what are the other needs? We both kind of agree that I think the right tackle position has to be solidified for this team. Probably another edge rusher, more depth in the trenches defensively. On paper, they've got a lot of starters that are really, really good. And if everybody remains healthy, it's a hell of a team. If you get into depth, I think there's a couple areas where you're probably going to be a little bit scarce when it comes to talent. And usually that matriculates through to your special teams. So if you're going
always a ginger topic.
Yeah, not
Packer fans.
Yeah, not the best of topics right now. So, everybody just assumes that because Bisaccia is showing up that suddenly the special teams are going to become at least top 15. Not necessarily if you don't have the talent to back it up, albeit maybe some different, schemes will help. But
undoubtedly.
Yeah. But you keep wondering about the depth of this team. Give me your thoughts on, because we talked about tackles. So right tackle would be an issue.
Yeah. And there's a kid from Minnesota who is an amazing pure right tackle. And I don't know, how much you know about him. His name is Daniel Fa'alele. Mm-hmm. He's 6'8", 340 pounds.
He reminds me of Phil Lodeholt.
Yes, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, that's what he reminds me of.
Yes. Pure right tackle, just all road grader to him.
Yeah.
He's not going to be a great footwork pass blocking guy, but his pass blocking is not. He can pass block well enough.
Right.
And then he can just maul people in the run.
Yeah.
And so he's somebody that most people are targeting, Daniel Fa'alele, as a early second round pick. That's not so far that the Packers couldn't take him near the end of the first round or trade back a few picks and take him there.
Yeah, and then it still end up with an. In that, see, I've said that too. That if they decided to trade up to get a wide receiver, they may take that next first round pick and trade back to get an additional pick.
Yeah,
and that way they still end up with the same amount. They still have a first round pick, and then you get a guy maybe early on in the second round of the draft. So that might be something that they actually do. So we're talking right tackle. Let me ask you this, because I haven't even talked anything about the rest of the teams in the NFC North, but Minnesota seems to be the next closest team to what the Packers are.
It feels that way.
So how far away is Minnesota, and what are their needs?
It's really weird. I've never gone into doing this. My draft coverage is now 25 years with the Vikings.
Right.
I've never gone into a draft where I've said, we don't have some one glaring hole that's so bad we have to fill it early.
Right.
This is a year where not only do we have a new GM with a totally new philosophy. Our previous GM, Rick Spielman's overriding philosophy was trade down, trade down, trade down, trade down. Keep getting 6th and 7th round picks who never pan out.
Right.
It was a horrible, horrible philosophy. I hated it then. I hate it now. Now we've got a new GM that's almost entirely analytically driven and has said that he is looking for explosive players, both sides of the ball, players that have traits that will distinguish them on the field. And as the Vikings stand right now, while they certainly have team needs, I'm not suggesting they don't have any needs, but their frontline starters are almost set across offense and defense.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in a position to really go best player available at 12. And that could be any of a handful of guys, and I'm happy to tell you who I think they'll take, but it's a weird position to be in where you really do feel like they can just take the best player at 12 or just trade down. I think all the quarterbacks will be there at 12.
Yeah.
If Pittsburgh wants to move up, if the Saints want to move up, I think there's a great chance the Vikings move down.
How many quarterbacks actually go in this first round?
Great question. I have
two.
I got two. And even that, to me, I think is a stretch.
I'm driving in today and I'm listening, and people are saying that, there's going to be a surprise. There's going to be 5 guys. I'm like, who the hell's who's then 3 of those GMs need to be fired.
That's my feeling.
Yeah.
These guys just don't grade out like that. And if these quarterbacks were in last year's draft, none of them would be going in the first round.
Right.
They'd all be out of the first round. But it's only because these are the guys we have to choose from that there's even talk about a Malik Willis going in the first round.
Right.
Some people think he'll go as high as 2. Malik Willis. I don't think that's going to be the case, because I don't think he grades out anywhere close to that level.
Let's do this. We're going to step away, take a quick break. Paul Charchian joining us here inside the Ewing Hotel, talking a little bit of NFL draft, the NFC North, all that kind of good stuff. Stay tuned. We got a lot more coming up right after this.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Continue on live here in Minneapolis, and our good buddy Paul Charchian hanging out with us. Here we're sitting here talking about the NFL draft coming up tomorrow night on many of these same stations.
Yeah, and your team in particular. I've got inside linebacker Nakobe Dean going to your team as your first pick.
The first pick?
You get the middle linebacker, the captain of the defense,
right,
the play caller on the best defense in the country by a lot. Georgia's going to have 6 players drafted off their defense.
I know, right?
So, and many in the first round. Jordan Davis is going to come out of the first round. This is a Devontae Wyatt's going to come out of the first round. I think Nakobe Dean makes a ton of sense for your team, inside linebacker. What do you think?
Because they value that now, and they got Devondre Campbell. Barnes is good. Don't get me wrong. I think if they're going to go defense, you would take best available first and foremost. But I think they're going to look to replace Za'Darius, the losses of Za'Darius Smith, even though he didn't play last year, and they still had success, and Rashawn Gary's been really solid. They're either going to go edge. If a defender goes first, they're either going to go edge, middle linebacker, or depth on the defensive front. Another guy to go along, Jerron Reed, Kenny Clark, Dean Lowry, and then a guy. TJ Slayton last year, I thought at times got washed out. He would make a play or two, and you go, oh, okay, that's why they drafted him. And then after that, you wouldn't hear from him for a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I think they need more trench help, but sometimes you get a good middle linebacker. Say like when Roquan Smith came in and solidified the Bears, even though you had Khalil Mack and you already had, other players there, Roquan Smith came in and kind of solidified the middle. Same thing can happen here. You'll have Devondre Campbell. You get a good backup or somebody behind Barnes or somebody behind Campbell so you can continue to move on next year. But I keep going back to, I think you got a 2-year window. I keep thinking you pushed all your chips to the middle of the table. This is not about 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years down the road. This is about today.
It is.
So I'm thinking to myself, what can you draft for today without shooting yourself in the foot? There's a fine line to that, because a lot of GMs who draft for the now, they don't have their jobs in 3 years because the draft becomes such a crapshoot and you lose out on a couple guys. You fall in love with a player, you over-evaluate, you talk yourself into it, he doesn't pan out. So I'm going to be wondering whether they take the immediacy or whether they take, we're going to stick to our plan, go with the future, and hope that one of the two of these guys actually pan out.
Yeah, what you don't have the luxury of doing is developing a raw talent who might need a year or two or beyond to grow into his body and do all the things you want. You can't just take that rare athlete, Bill, that you might like to take, that is a special athlete, but just needs time and needs reps, and you think is going to take, it just might take 2 or 3 years to fully blossom. You don't have that luxury.
Right.
You need people. And then we were talking about this last segment. Jameson Williams may not play a down of football until Thanksgiving. Okay. That's 1/3 of the remaining time in Aaron Rodgers' NFL career, potentially.
Right. Yeah, I know.
So, that's, to me, that just doesn't work. The math doesn't add up.
That's the thing. Let's say he is the only guy that falls. If you're the Packers, do you take him? I think you have to, right?
Not at 22. I'd fill other needs at 22. And if he's somehow still there at 28, then I think at that point, the value on James Williams is just too good to pass by.
Yeah. It's tough for me to look at a guy that's coming back from an ACL to say, one, you're going to be a contributor this year, your first year in the NFL. And two, I keep going back to I can hear Aaron Rodgers saying, well, I need to develop a relationship. There needs to be trust. And I'm thinking, well, first of all, he's not going to the OTAs and the workouts and mini camps.
No,
he's not showing up. So how are you going to develop anything with anybody? And then the second thing is you got a guy that's not even going to be on the field taking reps. And everybody talks about Amari Rodgers. Well, his second year, his next, well, you still got Randall Cobb. And Amari Rodgers is at best a slot receiver, at worst a backup to the backup of a wideout.
Yeah.
He's not going to be seeing reps out there. It's going to be Randall Cobb's deal.
Now, at 28, your team will have Treylon Burks available.
Mm-hmm.
If you want somebody who's very NFL ready, high level production, he was the entire offense at Arkansas.
Yeah.
They played him at everywhere. They played him at tight end a little bit. They played him at running back a little bit. He even played quarterback a little bit.
He was the Deebo Samuel of Arkansas.
He really was, and a lot of people talk about that comparison, and there's a little bit of truth to that. He's got that big, thick frame, but he can still get this deep speed. Like Deebo's got a little bit of that too. And there's a lot, 0 drops in college, and ready to be an immediate helper. He makes so much sense. Treylon Burks makes so much sense. If none of the higher profile guys, Wilson, Williams, London, Olave, drop, and I don't think any of them will get to 28. Right. But that's where Treylon
Burks has been. Just the other day, I was talking to a friend of mine who said Treylon Burks reminds him of Jordy Nelson. Very little drops, very good route runner, can run it in different areas. He's got some speed. He's got kind of deceptive speed. At times he doesn't look like a 4.4 kind of guy or a 4.3 kind of guy. But he goes and gets a ball.
Yeah.
He's got acceleration as the ball is in the air. And that might not be a bad way to go. They like versatility. Guys that can play inside, guys that can play outside, whether it's a slot, whether it's a wide, you can do certain things with them. They like that kind of guy. And especially in Matt LaFleur's offense, which is an offshoot of the Shanahan offense.
Right.
It would not surprise me if they went in that direction.
I think that's, if I had to put a player on pick 28, and if you tell me don't already have a wide receiver, that would be my guy, Treylon Burks, 28.
So the rest of the division, I don't expect Detroit to do a lot this upcoming season, just because they're
talking wins losses.
Talking wins losses.
I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest.
I don't expect them to do a lot, but I expect them to be better.
For sure.
But I'm really interested to see year 2 of Dan Campbell. Mm-hmm. They won that last game against the Packers.
They won against our Vikings.
They wanted to go out on a high note. They played for this guy, but you also hear inside that this guy is kind of a categorized mess, that he's not this regimented, everything in a particular place as head coaches need to be. He's kind of a shoot by the hip kind of guy. I don't know if that's going to work in the NFL. So I'm going to be interested to see year 2. And then obviously with the coaching changes and such down in Chicago, what happens there as well in year 2 of Justin Fields.
Well, okay. The catch here, though, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop on Dan Campbell all year. Like, how can you be this over-the-top emotional guy week after week?
Right.
And, how does your team keep riding that emotion and it doesn't ever fall off? But it never did fall off.
Right.
And the Lions only got better as the season went on, despite the fact that as the season went on, key player after key player after key player got knocked out for the year.
Yeah.
And at the end of the season, they're a team you didn't even want to play.
Right.
And they were beating good teams, like your team. Like my team was okay. It wasn't good. And now Detroit's got pick 2. They've got pick 32. And they got pick 34.
Yeah.
That's, if they hit 2 out of those 3 and they're real difference makers, suddenly we can't take the Lions wins for granted.
I still think Jared Goff can be your boat anchor.
Well, sure. Absolutely. It'll be fascinating to see if they believe, with the 3 picks in the top 34, are any of them a quarterback for Detroit? Or do they say, you know what, next year's going to be a much better quarterback draft.
That's what I was going to say.
We'll wait till next year and, cast our lot next year.
But do you then bank on the fact that you're only going to win 4, 5, 6 games again?
They might be thinking that way. I don't know. Yeah. And that's what they would be doing.
And then you take Luke Getsy, the former quarterbacks coach in Green Bay. He's now down in Chicago, and he's going to be the tutor, so to speak, for Justin Fields. New philosophy coming in. They don't want to expose him as much. What do you think out of Chicago? Khalil Mack is now gone. I mean, that big giant contract in Albatross is out of their books.
I don't like this team. And I don't like the moves they've made in the offseason so far. I'm going to withhold full judgment here until after the draft. But they don't have a draft pick. Chicago's first draft pick is 39.
Mm-hmm.
So we're largely looking at the team that they've already got right now.
Yeah.
You're still desperately short on receiving talent. Darnell Mooney's a nice player, but he's not the guy that should be leading your team. 140 targets that Darnell Mooney does not make sense. I thought Justin Fields was very inconsistent. And even when you factor in a bad offensive line and the lack of receiving talent, although they had Allen Robinson last year, you roll all that together and there still wasn't enough there for Justin Fields to make me feel comfortable that he's that guy. Now this aging defense that they're disassembling bit by bit. I think Chicago finishes last.
You can almost throw a dart at a dartboard and say we have a need if you're Chicago, short of the quarterback position. They've got to protect quarterbacks. Otherwise, Justin Fields is going to end up getting beat up. He reminds me a lot of a poor man's Lamar Jackson. He's going to run. He's going to throw. He's going to try to make some plays with his feet. His first instinct is to tuck and run rather than to actually make the play downfield. Doesn't have a ton of accuracy. Has a long looping arm, so to speak. I didn't like him coming out of Ohio State. He threw to a lot of open wide receivers rather than putting it into a tight window. But he far exceeded my expectations in year one. I just don't know if he's even going to survive year 2 if they don't get him a better offensive line.
And they gotta let him do what he does naturally. It was very weird the way they used Justin Fields last year in Chicago with Matt Nagy, which was not letting him run.
Right.
I'm like, you're taking his best single attribute off the table by not making designed runs. And then even when you could see that they had really tried to coach him into try to make your reads, don't automatically break out of the pocket if you don't have to. But the kid was then just absorbing sacks, and I didn't love the way they used him. And we can only, the hope for Chicago fans, not me and you, is that they will let Justin Fields do the things he does well more often: run the ball, throw deep. You talked about the loping throw, which is true.
Right.
Throws a nice deep ball.
He does. He's got a strong arm. He can do that.
Yep. And if he can start getting some connections on that deep ball, that's when it gets real interesting.
You're going to be on doing your thing with the Vikings and Vikings Radio Network. You and Paul again.
Yeah.
Back at it tomorrow night.
Yeah,
and now you're teaching. I was telling people earlier you're teaching.
Yeah, I'm teaching a journalism class at the U, my alma mater.
Yeah.
And it's been fun and different working with young people again and going back to my old building where I took all my journalism classes and seeing what the young kids are doing today and thinking today. They're not the same as when the same as when I was there.
No,
I'll tell you that much.
How many people are TikToking in your class? That's what
I was really worried about that. With the phone use isn't as much as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Which is great. They're very conscientious about showing up for class. And when they don't, they email you and they're like, I'm not gonna be able to make it today. Here's what I got going on. Can you send me the deck? Can you, they're talking points, anything I should know? It's special about this class. That part surprised me as somebody, because when I went to school and when you went to school, there were no phones. So that wasn't a deal. I just assumed that I was going to get in there and have my class be on their phone the whole time, but it really hasn't been that way at all.
Oh, well, that's great. The professor.
I like
the new professor. There you go.
Like it.
Paul, always good to see you, man.
Yeah,
great to sit down with you guys last night, and we had so much fun.
We did. Yeah, Manny's is the best.
Yeah.
And you are the best.
No doubt.
And thank you for picking up the tab. That is not trivial, my friend.
Every now and then.
That'll keep us friends for a long time.
I had to guarantee your appearance today on the program. Right. Let's do this. We're going to step away, take a quick break. We are broadcasting live here in Minneapolis at the Ewing Hotel. Stay tuned. We got a lot more coming up right after this.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Series returns. Secure your tickets to see the big guns roar around the road course in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. For all the racing information, go to roadamerica.com. That is roadamerica.com.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome. Glad to have you, man. What a good time having our buddy Paul Charchian here. Yes, Mark, who asked, is Charchian doing the fantasy football this year? Yes, Charch is going to be back. He said before retirement, he's got about 5 more years left in him. So for the next 5 years, we got our buddy Paul Charchian, who's going to be joining us on Thursdays to talk some fantasy football and such. So good stuff. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. If you want to give us a shout, call us. Again, we'd be happy to touch base in regards to the NFL draft. The Green Bay Packers place in it. So that's coming up. Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers podcast is going to join us coming up at the top of the hour. Mike Clemens in the final hour of the show today. So some really, really good stuff. 877-867-1670. Hit us up over on Twitter at Bill_Michaels, at Bill_Michaels, or at Ben Z. Kenny. Find him at Ben Z. Kenny over there on Twitter. You can also find us over on Facebook, facebook.com/The Bill Michaels Show. And YouTube, we encourage you to subscribe to YouTube. And you don't have to watch it every day, but it pops up and lets you know that we're here. But you can check out YouTube. Go to youtube.com/ and that is simply Bill Michaels Show, Michaels. Find us on all the podcast networks. You can find us over on Spotify, Apple iTunes, and on Google Podcasts as well. So there you go. Mark, glad you got your information. This one is from Tyler. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm running through my Twitter sources, speaking of Twitter,
right
now to see if the University of Minnesota is actually called the U. Hadn't heard that before. Didn't know we were in Florida.
The U here in Minnesota is Paul's old stomping grounds. Yes. He is a
the Ohio
Gopher.
State.
Yeah.
No, I hate the other Ohio State colleges.
That. Yeah, I hate that.
The U.
Never liked it when they started doing that. Never. And it, you know how it started was like, I think it was back in, was it 2012? What year did and I should know this, but the year that Jim Tressel took the Buckeyes to the Fiesta Bowl and beat Miami in the Fiesta Bowl for the national title. And
talking 2001?
Was it that long
2003.
ago? 2003. Whatever year they went to the Fiesta Bowl. Anyway, God, it seems like just yesterday. But regardless, when they did that, that's when the players started. You know how they do the introductions, and they introduce the offensive line, the defensive line, and all that kind of stuff, and that type of thing. That's when the players started saying the Ohio State University, because it was always the U. That's when the players started saying the, and that's when it morphed into the Ohio State University. And I've hated it. Huh. It wasn't because of some kind of branding issue. It was because they wanted to one-up Miami. That was the reason.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I will now be calling Wisconsin here the Wisconsin.
Do it.
The W.
Do it. Go for it. I would do it. In 2003, there was a 2002 season.
Yep.
2003. And that was God, I can't believe it's been that long. I'm an idiot. It seems the time has flown by. It's like my whole life has flown past me. Holy mackerel. But yeah, it's been that long. But that's when, on a couple of controversial calls, Ohio State ended up winning the game over Miami. But that's when all of that began, the Ohio State University. So anyway, not to get too far.
Should I say how old I was for that game?
You were like, what were you, sperm?
4.
4.
I was 4.
Well, you suck. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. If you've got a question, hit us up. By all means, do so. Mark says, what do you think of Jameis Williams out of Alabama? Would you take a flyer on him with the torn ACL? The Packers need long-term speed and a very good wide receiver. You'd hate to pass on a Hall of Fame type player because he's got an ACL right now. Here's the question you have to ask yourself. And this is something that, Charch and I were talking about, and we talked about it off the air as well. If you're the Packers, are you drafting for the now? Or are you drafting for team needs over a period of time and best player available? Because that's what you have to ask yourself. You can't push all your chips to the middle of the table and then on some of your most vital picks that can be contributors right here, right now, say, well, we'll wait a year or two. Because you don't have that kind of time. You really pigeonhole your commitment when, and don't get me wrong, you should have, rightfully so, when it comes to keeping Aaron Rodgers and keeping him happy and paying him the money and all that. I get all that. But that's because you, one, don't have another option. Jordan Love is clearly not ready. Whether you end up keeping him or whether you end up getting rid of him, it doesn't matter. He's clearly not ready. So you didn't want to turn the page on a Hall of Fame quarterback. You didn't want to turn the page on a guy that could lead you to a Super Bowl. So are you drafting for the here and the now, or are you drafting for the future? Because if it's for the future, then what are you doing? That's why Jameson Williams, he's such an enigma for the Green Bay Packers because you don't know when he's going to be ready. You don't know what his contributions are going to be. That's a tough spot to be in. If that's the best available that comes to you via wide receiver at whatever draft position, do you take a guy who's really not going to play for you till maybe October at the earliest? I mean, we saw during the pro day that he didn't participate in the pro day, but we saw him working out and doing drills and, bouncing around looking good. You would never know that he had, a major knee reconstructive surgery. But how much has he lost? What has that done for his speed? He's not doing football moves. He's doing workout moves. He's getting ready for conditioning. He's not getting ready to take a hit and make a cut and run a route and all that kind of stuff. Not yet. So what do you do? I get it. If it was me, could you ask yourself, with Sammy Watkins, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, another wide receiver in the draft, Amari Rodgers, Robert Tonyan, Dominic Daphne, Mercedes Lewis, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, with all of those guys, do you have the ability to get enough wins early on to say, have the cavalry of wide receiver help come to you in October and say, okay, I'm ready to play? And then you begin to really kind of take off with a kind of a new weapon, so to speak. Can you wait for that? If indeed that even happens. And here's the other question. Can you take a wide receiver and then let's say you get a rash of injuries at wide receiver? Lazard goes down, Rodgers goes down, and Cobb goes down. Then what? I just don't know if you could take a guy like Jameis Williams, even though we're probably going to end up kicking ourselves by not getting him in the fold. If Drake London falls like Paul predicted, then that's not a bad way to go. But Jameis Williams is kind of the wild card in all of this. And you could end up looking 5 years down the road from now going, this guy's going to be a Hall of Fame player, and the Packers let him go by because he had a knee injury at the time, which is understandable, and the circumstances are what they are. You have to understand it 5 years from now, just like you understand it today. But if you let him go, it could be it could be one of those I'm going to kick myself moments. Chris says, don't forget, add Josiah DeGuara to that list too. That's another guy, weaponry-wise, we haven't really talked about. He'll be there, but he can catch. There's no doubt about it. But you don't have anybody right now on this team that's going to take the lid off of a defense. You just don't. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Hit us up. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Stanny, second to National Walker's Point. If you're going to be heading down there tonight prior to the game, maybe you're going to watch the game there, or take the shuttle over to the Fiserv Forum as the Bucks close out the Chicago Bulls coming up tonight in Game 5 of this series. Stop at Stenny, second to National Walker's Point. As they say, you should be here. Stay tuned. More of the Bill Michaels Show next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. Broadcasting live here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where today, thank God, it's warming up a little bit. Up around 48 degrees here today. Sun is out. Not a bad way to go if you're watching on the Bud Light live stream. You kind of see the bright sunshine that is basking down today, the final day here at the Ewing Hotel. And the Ewing, which I have said before, we can't say thanks enough to the staff and management and the ownership of the Ewing Hotel. There's a sister hotel in Milwaukee called the Iron Horse Hotel. Beautiful, very similar type of decor and setup. Very industrial and a modified industrial building into some beautiful rooms. And we're hoping to make this our home when the Packers come a-calling during the NFL season, and hope to do maybe a little gathering here, as a matter of fact. But thanks to the staff and management, they've been nothing but unbelievably nice in a day and age in which not only do businesses tell you, hey, please be patient because it's tough to find, servers, services, people and such, but also where it may not be the best of service to please be patient. This place has been beyond reproach. They are unbelievably friendly, unbelievably helpful, nice, from the valet all the way through to the front desk people, the service staff. They've just been fantastic. I can't say enough about them. It's just been a fantastic experience. If you're looking for a good place to go, the Ewing Hotel is one of those places. Hey, a terrific company right in our own backyard called Wabam, W-A-B-A-M. Speaking of great service, a company right in the state of Wisconsin, Colgate, Wisconsin to be exact, for industrial products when it comes to industrial cleaning supplies, if it comes to janitorial service, or maybe you're just a weekend warrior and you want to clean up your car and your motorcycle. Great way to do it. Go to getwabam.com. Getwabam, W-A-B-A-M. Go to getwabam.com. That is getwabam.com, and see everything that they have to offer. Good people there. So as we mentioned earlier, the Bulls tonight ruled out Zach LaVine, Alex Caruso, both out for Game 5 tonight against the Bucks. No Chris Middleton, but the Bucks have played extremely well. Grayson Allen, Brooke Lopez, Drew Holiday, all have stepped up. Others as well, and I expect the Bucks to get a win tonight. Bucks close it out, Bucks in 5, and then they move on to the Boston Celtics, and that will be probably a 6 or 7 game series. And that, to me, is going to be the Eastern Conference Finals. That'll be whoever wins that. It might end up being a bloodbath, but by the time it's all said and done, whoever stands tall in that one most likely will represent the Eastern Conference when it comes to the NBA Finals. In the meantime, for many of you who have read the article that I posted over on the Facebook fan page, it was written earlier this year, but it talks a lot about Christian Yelich and what's going on batting wise. Hopefully he can overcome, bring the average up, bring the OPS back up, the on-base percentage specifically, but more so than anything, start getting the ball into the air, driving the ball a little bit better. We'll wait and see what happens. The Brewers back at it again tonight. Peter Bukowski of the Locked On Packers podcast is going to be joining us coming up after the top of the hour. We'll talk with him what he feels the Packers' needs are, what direction they're going to go, what rumors he may be hearing. We'll get into all of that. From what I understand, and I know Paul Charchian said that he's got the Packers picking a linebacker. From what I understand, and that very well may happen, but I understand that it is the priority of a wide receiver and a right tackle specific, provided that the Packers don't trade up or down in the first round of the draft. Those are the two that you circle and you say, okay, stars next to them. That's what they are hoping to get. So if you have a talent at either position that fall, it would not shock me if the Packers end up seeing some wide receivers fall, or maybe the guy that they wanted is off the board and they feel that other guys are maybe second round material to that extent. It would not shock me to see the Packers take a right tackle first and then maybe a wide receiver before it's all said and done. But I got to think they're going to take at least 2 wideouts, and they're going to add depth on both the trenches, both the right tackle position, and I would assume the defensive front, probably an edge rusher, and then you start to piecemeal it together. You start to try to solidify yourself when it comes to maybe your defensive secondary. Find another player that maybe could end up being as good as Jair Alexander. If you don't re-sign him to a long-term deal because you can't afford it at this point, maybe you just move on. Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to see them do that. And I think the likelihood of that is probably few and far between. But if you find another good corner, somebody that can be counter to Stokes, such as Jair, maybe you go in that direction as well. So a lot of places the Packers could go coming up tomorrow night. And again, reminding you, on many of these same stations, 7 o'clock Central Time tomorrow night, we go live with the NFL Draft. The commissioner opens it up. We'll carry all of it for you. We'll carry the picks for you. We'll give you the analyzation. We'll talk about what's left on those draft boards throughout the first round of the NFL Draft. Packers having 2 picks. You can expect trades. You can expect movement. We'll see if they go up. We'll see if they go down. Do they get the guy they want? Do they get the guy that you want them to get? We'll get into all of that coming up tomorrow night on many of these same stations. And if you do not get this broadcast tomorrow night and you turn on your local radio station and you say, whoa, wait a minute, the Bill Michaels show's not on, the draft coverage is not on, then what you need to do is, for the backup, go to WOZN, the Zone in Madison. The Zone Madison, on many of those apps that you can download, go to the Zone Madison and download it and get us in, because we go live at 7 o'clock Central Time coming up tomorrow night on many of these same stations on the app. You can also find us on YouTube, find us on the Facebook fan page, the live, Facebook Live, and over on Twitter Live as well, and on Twitch TV. So plenty of ways to follow us. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Just Jeff says, Jameson, he's the guy. Adam says, I always thought that the OSU thing became when Monday Night Football started doing player intros. Maybe it coincides with the championship we were talking about. I can't remember that far back. That's when I remember it, and that's what some friends of mine who still are associated with Ohio State tell me, was because it was Ohio State and Miami. Remember, Miami was always called the U. It was the return of the U. And that's when Ohio State started having fun with it. And you're right. Players on Monday Night Football, when they would get introduced, they would say the same thing. The Ohio State University, when they were battling back and forth. But that's really going into that particular game is when that thing became prevalent. And that's when people started to talk about it, and it suddenly became a thing. And I don't know why it did, but it did. Whatever. All right. We got 2 hours down. We got 2 hours yet to go. Peter Bukowski, Locked on Packers podcast. He is going to join us coming up in the next hour, so stay tuned. A lot more of the Bill Michaels Show coming up right after this. Hour number 3 of the Bill Michaels Show. Good afternoon. On a bright, sunshiny day here in Minneapolis. I know, I'm across enemy lines. I apologize for that, but did a little traveling over the last couple of days and didn't want to miss the shows leading up to the NFL draft. Didn't want to miss the show, so I figured, it's kind of a working trip. We'll do that. We'll hang out together, give you a little view inside the Ewing Hotel. In addition to that, to give you a little view outside the Ewing Hotel on the streets that right here, the intersection that's right out in front of the Ewing Hotel. For those of you watching on the Bud Light live stream, give you that as well. Joining us now on the hotline, our buddy Peter Bukowski of the Locked on Packers podcast. Find him at Peter_Bukowski. Peter, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm excited for the draft to finally be here. We can talk about the players very, very soon and not just the speculation.
So what do you feel after all of this that's been speculated about? What do you feel is going to happen tomorrow night with those two picks?
Oh, I feel like it's going to be it's either going to be a great time on social media and for people like you and I who have to talk about this, or it's going to be an apocalypse. I can't decide which one, but it's going to be one of those two.
When I started to go through this over the last 24 hours, and really, I've been diving deep into this anyway, starting to look at different players, but so many people have so many different mock drafts into who the Packers are going to take. Some say the Packers are obviously going to go after not one but two wide receivers. Others say, you know what, the Packers are going to just play their board, do what they do. They may even trade out of this thing before it's all said and done. I can't imagine them trading out. I can see them trading up and getting the guy that they want at the wide receiver position, and then maybe trading back out of the first round to get whomever it may be, a tackle or an edge rusher or what have you. But I don't think would you be shocked if the Packers stayed where they're at with both picks?
I wouldn't be shocked. But here's what I think we have to understand about, and I've been guilty of this too, is we talk about it, a team like Green Bay that has a way of doing things. They have a model, and it's worked. Going back to the Ron Wolf days, Brian Gutekunst is ultimately a disciple of Ron Wolf. And I would say he more resembles Wolf than Thompson in the way that he has been aggressive to move around, to sign players. His model of team building is very different from someone like Ted Thompson. That said, they do still use things like their receiver preferences. They want bigger guys. They want faster guys. They want, good three cones on these guys to be able to move. And not all of these receivers are going to fit that model. In fact, very few of these receivers actually fit that model. But here's the difference is we talk about this team and what they've done in the past, and we have to look at the context. What they did with Aaron Rodgers in 2015, 2016, 2017 is it just doesn't resemble where this team is now, because at that time they thought they had 10 more years with Aaron Rodgers. And so you can plan for the future a little bit differently. They also, at that time, they've got guys like Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, and Randall Cobb on their roster. They had these defensive needs that they were trying to address. Well, that's not where they are now.
Right.
We know that this is a now short-term proposition with Aaron Rodgers, 1, 2, maybe 3 years more. Devontae Adams is gone. They have not been in a situation like this where they haven't had a bona fide number one receiver since when? Mike Sherman? I mean, it's been a long time since they've been in a position like this. So I don't think we can say, well, the Packers always do this thing, and so that means they're going to do this same thing now. No, they've never been in a position like this, and we've seen Brian Gutekunst over the last few years when there have been major things that this team has to address. He has gone after those needs in earnest, and I expect him to do that. Now, does that mean they have to take a guy in the first round? No, but I don't think it's going to be one of those things where we get to, late on Friday night and we're going, when are they going to do it? When are they going to take a pass catcher? I would be shocked if that happens.
So what guy do you have your eye on that you say, this is the guy I would love to see to come into this Packers organization?
So I look at this there's this first tier of guys. And in that tier one, it's the top, the Garrett Wilsons, the Drake Londons, the Chris Olaves, the Jameson Williams, the Treylon Burks. That's my tier one. I think George Pickens is just a step outside. Any of those 6 guys would be immediately the most talented receiver on this team. And I think all of them could be legitimate number one options for the Packers. If you're going to trade up, I think there's 2 guys. It's Drake London, the kid from USC, who did not run, but and there's some concerns about his speed. I don't have those concerns. I think he's a perfect fit for this offense. He's got the kind of talent. He's still only 20 years old, who can develop into a superstar receiver. And the other one is Jameson Williams from Alabama. If the medicals check out on the knee, and from everything that I've heard and everything that I've seen reported, he is ahead of schedule on the knee. He's doing great. Posted a video of the workouts he was doing, and the Packers have the preeminent knee guy in their building. So they're going to know his speed is special. And if he just becomes, taller T.Y. Hilton, you've got a really good player. And it would be great with Aaron Rodgers, who wants to throw it deep. The guy that I think is a great fit, who's falling, and I think is most likely to be in that range, in that 22 to 28 range, is Treylon Burks, the receiver from Arkansas. He is my wide receiver 2 in this draft. He needs some polish, but in terms of a guy who can make plays with the ball in his hand, who can excel early precisely because he can just make plays. Just get him the ball and he can go do the thing. In this offense with Matt LaFleur, so much of it is RPO screens, crossing routes, go routes, deep over routes where he's not having to run these timing routes from the Mike McCarthy era where you have to be perfectly in sync with your quarterback, hit the top of the drop, ball out. No, it's not like that. And Traylon Burks is not going to give you that. He's the guy where we could be talking about this in 2 or 3 years where it's like, it's A.J. Brown. He's that kind of player. He's got that kind of physical ability. And he's 6'3", a legitimate 230 of rock solid muscle. I mean, he's built for the cold weather in Green Bay. That's the guy I've got my eye on at 22 for Green Bay.
Yeah, we had Paul Charchian on earlier, and he was talking about him and kind of compared him to the Deebo Samuel of Arkansas football. He was doing it all. He was running back. He was wide out. He played tight end at one point. He was doing a little bit of everything, and they were using him in many different facets, which is what Matt LaFleur ultimately wants to do. It's that same offshoot of the Kyle Shanahan style of offense, a lot of motion, a lot of movement, a lot of mismatches, putting a guy in position to be successful. So I can see a guy like Burks coming in to this situation. If they do get a wide out early on, the next need, I know people don't like to talk about the trenches because they're not flashy, but they need a right tackle. I still think a right tackle, maybe a pure right tackle, is in the future for the Packers. Do you?
So this is tough because I think the most likely right tackle for the Packers in 2022 and beyond is Elton Jenkins. I think they're going to slide him across. I think he's going to play there. After what we saw at left tackle from him last year, I just don't know how you leave that thinking there's any better option on your team or frankly almost anywhere else than Elton Jenkins. I mean, to have him and David Bakhtiari both there and bookend you with John Runyon and Josh Myers in the middle, figure out if Royce Newman is the guy. I think what you could see is the Packers love to take tackles who can play guard. They did that with Royce Newman. They did that with Josh Sitton. They did that with TJ Lang. I think what you'll see is they will take, starting on day 2, an offensive lineman who played tackle. Someone like Sean Ryan at UCLA is a guy I really, really like and I think could be on their radar, has the athletic profile that they tend to like. Someone who you give him a chance to play tackle early, but also cross-train him at guard and give him a chance to compete with Royce Newman at that right guard spot. I think that could make a lot of sense. I trust the Packers with Adam Stenavich and Matt LaFleur to say, we will put the best 5 guys out there at the positions that make the most sense for us. To me, they have 3 tackles that you feel good about with Bakhtiari, Jenkins, and Yosh Nijman. I think they have 2 interior offensive linemen that you feel good about right now. You might end up feeling good about Royce Newman eventually, but we're not there yet with him. So I think if they're going to add on the offensive line, you go back to your roots for Green Bay and you get a tackle who maybe can be a swing tackle for you, but is probably a guard, someone in that Lane Taylor mold. And I think a guy like Sean Ryan is a great potential fit there.
Talking with Peter Bukowski of the Locked On Packers podcast, at Peter_Bukowski is where you can find his stuff. Now moving over to the defensive side of the football, we talk about edge rusher to replace Zadarius Smith, albeit Zadarius really didn't play last year, so you're not replacing anybody, so to speak, other than a roster spot. Then there's additional defensive trenches help with Kenny Clark. You brought in Jerron Reed, and then you've got TJ Slayton behind him. You still got Dean Lowry. But, defensively speaking, what becomes the need? And if let's just say for blanks and giggles, they do not after this season keep, because of the mounting price tag that goes along with it, if they don't keep Jair, which I can't imagine they're not doing, but do you draft another defensive back just in case?
So if you're going to go defensive back, and we're going to talk about someone who they might not keep beyond this year, I think you have to look at safety, because while I think Darnell Savage is going to get his 5th-year option picked up, he is. I sort of don't understand the fan skepticism around him, and even some of the media skepticism around him. The team loves this guy. They think his ceiling is essentially unlimited. The players love him. I would be shocked if he is not a long-term Green Bay Packer. But Adrian Amos is going into the last year of his deal. They've reworked that contract a number of times, so there's voids and dead money at the end, with the expectation, at least in my view, that this is going to be the last year that he's in Green Bay. So is a safety something that they would look at? I think at the end of the first, there are some guys that are really appealing. Lewis Seen from Georgia is almost a carbon copy of Adrian Amos and his ability to play that split safety look, to spin down, to come down and run the alley and lay running backs out. He's a hitter, but he can run. I mean, 4.38 speed. A Daxton Hill from Michigan, who played in the slot, but I think is going to be a safety. You talk to some people and they'll tell you the NFL teams think he's a corner because of his movement skills. I mean, a 6'7" 3 cone is freaky for a guy as big as he is at 6 foot 195. And then the guy that I absolutely love from Baylor, Jalen Petrie. I think he's Tyrann Mathieu 2.0. He's 5'11", 198, but he plays edge at times, blitzes like a linebacker, fits the run like a linebacker. I mean, you watch this guy in the Big 12, and he's flying around making plays. Played as a slot corner by name, but he was a slot corner in name only because he just flew around and made plays everywhere. Someone who could play the star role for the Packers in the short run, could become a safety and could be just a movable chess piece for the Packers. If he's there in the 50s, someone like Jalen Petrie at 53, I would do a backflip for that. I mean, he is an unbelievable player to watch. I don't know how he's going to hold up at the next level, trying to do some of that same stuff at his size. But I think safety is definitely a spot where you want to look to add, because even if they find a way to extend Adrian Amos, who is your third safety? And they played a third safety last year about a third of the time. So if you're going to play those big nickel looks, it can't be someone like Henry Black. You have to get someone who can play a little bit, more consistently. And so if you are not going to have Adrian Amos in a year and you want to play three safeties, it just sort of makes sense to say, here's this rookie who can be your third safety in the short run and then cashes out as a starting safety. Overall, I think that's a sneaky need for Green Bay, and I wouldn't be surprised, if that's one of their first three picks is a safety.
Good stuff as always, Peter. We certainly appreciate it. We're going to touch base down the road, and once the draft is complete, we'll kind of evaluate this thing all over again. So keep your phone handy, okay?
Will do. Talk soon, Bill.
Appreciate it, buddy. There you go. Peter Bukowski. You can read his stuff, Locked On Packers podcast as well, at Peter_Bukowski, BUKOWSKI, at Peter_Bukowski. You can find his stuff there. Good stuff. And nobody knows. I mean, for sure, we've all got our opinions, all have our ideas. Who do you want to see the Green Bay Packers take? Who are you kind of holding your breath for? I mean, everybody's going to have somewhere, some way, shape, or form. There's going to be, whether it's a watch party or you're going to be watching on TV and listening to this broadcast, and you're going to be sitting there, watching names come off the board, and we're going to have highlighters going, and we've got our top 60, 70 guys. And okay, are they picking top 60, 70? Do they get out of that? Do they take a reach on somebody? Is there a flyer? Is there a trade? Do they trade back? Who are you hoping for? Who are you hoping for? 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. A lot of thought in all of this as we sit here just kind of watching traffic go by outside the Ewing Hotel here in downtown Minneapolis, and just kind of enjoying the sunshine and the day and all that kind of good stuff, and talking a little football, talked a little baseball. We'll get back into the draft talk when we come back. Got baseball talk to get back into, a little bit of Bucs talk if you want to do that, and then back into the football talk with Mike Clemens coming up in the last hour of the program. Stay tuned. We got a lot more of the Bill Michaels Show. It's coming up next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket, this is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Buy more, save more with a patio door.
Wait, what?
Right now, at Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin, the more windows you buy, the more you'll be saving by adding a patio door.
Miss Della from Pella?
Please, call me Gina.
Okay, Gina Della for Pella? Like, I was told there'd be no map.
That's okay. Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin makes it easy. Now through April 30th, when you buy 3 Pella windows, you'll save $500 when you add a patio door. Buy 6, save $1,000 with a patio door. Buy a dozen Pella windows, save $2,000 when you...
At a patio door?
Correct. And along with 6 full lines of windows, traditional to contemporary, Pella of Wisconsin has financing to fit most any budget.
Awesome.
Buy more, save more with a patio door, but only through April 30th. Set your free consultation today at PellaWI.com.
Certain restrictions apply. See showroom for details.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. Appreciate it as always, your participation. I'm going to ask you something now. Ask you to contribute here. And we're going to get to that coming up here in just a minute. Our friends at Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin, think about this. A little math here. I know when you talk about first round of the NFL draft and player value and all that kind of stuff, you got to do a little math, right, to see what equals what. When you buy 3 Pella windows, you save $500 when you add a patio door. When you buy 6, you save $1,000 when you add a patio door. You buy a dozen windows, you save $2,000 when you add a patio door. You kind of get me? They have an unbeaten variety of windows. They have 2 different vinyl windows that are economical. They have an Impervia window, which is Impervia is as strong as fiberglass. They also have the wood windows, contemporary to traditional. You can on all the windows you can pick the hardware. You can pick the interior, the exterior trim. You can make it match your house, your interior woodwork, whatever it happens to be. Different hardware on the windows. You can go with like a roll screen. You can go with a slider window. There's many ways to go. So check out our friends at Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. Go to PellaWI.com. That is PellaWI.com, or just call them. 855 Pella WI, 855 PELLA, 855 Pella WI. That's 855 Pella WI. And there you go. Some good people. They have great financing deals. So all this stuff lasts through the end of the month, so you don't have a lot of time to go. So get a hold of our friends at Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. There you go. 877-867-1670. So who do you want to see the Green Bay Packers take? Who do you want? You've heard us pontificate about it. You heard all of us talk about it. But who do you want the Green Bay Packers to take? Leroy, guy with a face, says Olave and Zach Carter. Goody most likely won't take either of these guys, but I certainly can dream. Zach Carter.
That'd be a stretch early.
That would be. That would be a little bit of a stretch. Olave, I could say, you know what? Yeah, I'd love to see that. Olave, if he falls and they have the ability to go get him, yes. But I don't think you're going to end up with Zach Carter. Bit of a stretch. 877-867-16. But you can dare to dream. There's no wrong answer here. There's no wrong answer here. 877-867-1670. 877-867-1670. Hit us up. Want to hear from you. Who do you want to see the Green Bay Packers take? Who do you want to see the Green Bay Packers take? This one says Tyler Lindbaum. And coming out of Iowa, I believe Tyler Lindbaum is. Where is he going to end up? Solid player, no doubt. Solid player. But what are the odds that he lands high end in the NFL draft? As they put it, when I read that about Tyler, they called him as Iowa as they come. As Iowa as he comes. And he ended up with an injury, if I'm not mistaken. But I think he did an interview recently, said he's the injury, was serious. He knew several teammates that experienced the Lee Frank midfoot injury, which is what he had. And that it's very tough to overcome and come back from, especially but he's done it, but especially when you use your body for leverage. It's one thing, as a wide out, obviously anytime you use your feet for speed or what have you, but when you're using power, strength, leverage, quickness, that type of thing, man, that injury to his left foot, he was a key cog, and to go down with a Lee Frank injury, man, that's a tough thing to overcome, but he's come back from it. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. George says Olave's going to be gone by the time the Green Bay Packers pick, unless they go up to get him. Now, maybe the whole visitation with him down at the Combine was nothing more than a smokescreen. Possible. Maybe it was nothing more than just looking to look and then trying to throw everybody off that they were interested in him, so others become interested in him. This is from Anthony, who says Jahan Dotson out of Penn State. I think he'd be a solid move for the Packers. He's going to be low first-round guy. The Green Bay Packers also could look for the kid we were talking about the kid out of Arkansas a little bit earlier. You are correct, Traylon Burks. They could also go for the kid out of Arkansas. Appreciate the email. And Traylon Burks is kind of that, as we had mentioned earlier when we had both Peter Bukowski on and Paul Charchian. Traylon Burks, kind of the Deebo Samuel of Arkansas offense. Played many positions offensively. He even ran the ball a couple of times. He can do a lot. And in the offense that Matt LaFleur runs, which is an offshoot of the offense that Kyle Shanahan runs and likes motion, likes mismatches, likes to put guys in different positions, like the versatility of certain players to put them on the move, for Aaron Rodgers to put them on the move and use them in different situations. Treylon Burks would be a guy that would fit. He would fit that Packers scheme, no doubt. 877-867-1670. Darren says, I'm not caught up on the specific players or positions, but I want to see guys with upside who can impact the game. I know this sounds obvious, but get some guys who can actually be difference makers right away. Dwayne says, please, baby Jesus, get Leo Chanel on day 2 or day 3. There would be your middle linebacker pickup. There would be that linebacker pickup that we were talking about earlier when we had Paul Charchian on. Paul seems to think that they might go for a middle linebacker early because there's not going to be a run on middle linebackers. There's going to be a run on wideouts and tackles and edge rushers. Maybe a quarterback or two go in the first round, but beyond that, that's where everybody's going because there's this plethora of these guys, but everybody wants one early. So maybe if some of these guys fall, you go with a guy in the middle linebacking position early on, or like our buddy Dwayne says, day 2 or day 3, Leo Chanel becomes the guy that you've had up close and personal ability to watch on a week in and week out basis. Maybe the Packers go in that direction. And to be honest with you, it'd probably be about time. You want to see one of these guys that has performed well for the Badgers and done it so consistently over time. You know, the Watts obviously proved that they could get the job done, and the Packers didn't want anything to do with them. Maybe it is time, if Leo Chanel would happen to be there, that they could go ahead and pick him up and say, you know what, we're not gonna keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. 877-867-1670. 877-867-1670. You can find us over on the Facebook fan page as well. Answer the same question. You find us on Twitter. Answer the same question. Over on the Bud Light live stream, same question. Who do you want to see the Green Bay Packers pick up in this year's NFL draft? Who do you have your eye on? Stay tuned. We got more coming up right after this.
Ready? This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The roar of racing is back at Road America. NASCAR, IndyCar, Superbikes, Vintage. The 640 acres of land in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin will shake with a roar of engines. Get your tickets now and secure your spot up close. Camping sites and corporate hospitality space is available. Get your 2022 season pass, individual tickets, and all the info at roadamerica.com. That's roadamerica.com. Road America, America's National Park of Speed.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. Broadcasting here in Minneapolis. Enjoying the 40-degree weather, which is a little bit better than 40-degree weather. Had a chance just during the break to get up and walk outside a little bit and watch traffic go by. If you're watching over on the Bud Light live stream, thank you for hanging out with us today. We are asking you the question, who do you want to see the Green Bay Packers draft? Who do you want to see the Packers draft? 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Give us a shout. Again, 877-867-1670. If there's somebody specific, let me know who you want and or why. Ferguson from Wisconsin is another one. We talked about Leo Chanel a little bit earlier. A lot of people talking about Ferguson coming out of Wisconsin being a tight end, that maybe, just maybe, he could add depth to that particular position. But just wait and see. But another guy that, again, a possession guy, a possession receiver, a guy that, can get downfield. A guy, I think he's better than Josiah DeGuara at that particular position. And obviously can be a possession guy when it comes to the red zone. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Again, 877-867-1670. Hit us up. Couple of different things here. This one's from Mark. Mark says, a couple of guys that I would love to see, but I don't think they're going to fall to the Packers. Jameson Williams out of Alabama. And I would love to see Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon, the edge rusher. This guy I watched in the Pac-12. He is a beast. Thibodeau, well, first of all, both guys are projected to go relatively high. I don't know what Jameson Williams is going to end up at, because I've seen projections all over the place. I've seen him all the way up as high as number 7 or 8. I've seen him as low as the Green Bay Packers at 22, 23. So we've seen all of that. Thibodeau, though, is expected to go relatively high. I mean, he's a guy that many project to be a top 10. I was looking just a little while ago at our lads in the scouting guide when it came to the draft, and I get the sense that he's going to be one of the top guys when it comes to edge rushers off the board. So I don't think he's going to be around, to be perfectly honest with you. But I would agree with you that if indeed he ends up falling, hell yeah, take it in a heartbeat. Take it in a heartbeat. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. And this is our buddy Steve. Steve says some of the picks. He says the 2 picks I would like to see at 22 and 28 would be Devontae Wyatt and Treylon Burks. Wyatt would be an amazing addition to the team with Kenny Clark, and Burks a big target that would be a perfect fit for the offense. So that being said, I still think they trade at least one of those picks away. That's from our buddy Steve. Appreciate it. Treylon Burks, I think we've talked about a lot. When it comes to his ability, when it comes to the multi-use, getting a guy like Devontae Wyatt, the big defensive end out of Georgia. Again, we talked about him with Paul Charchian earlier in the show. He's a beast. He's a beast. He would be a tremendous addition. He would be the not nose tackle, but he would be the B.J. Raji edition. He would be the C.J. Wilson edition, the big body. He's just going to grind on you. And then come third and fourth quarter, after just putting up with that guy for so long, you just start to give way. But think about it this way. You look at Kenny Clark, Jerron Reed, Dean Lowry, and then if you take Devontae Wyatt and put those 4 together as a rotation, maybe you start to get something out of TJ Slayton along the way. Then possibly you have 5. You could have 5 legit guys you can continually rotate in and out, body-wise, keeping them fresh. And that really, I know individually you got Kenny Clark and then a bunch of guys. But as a group, you start to really grind on offensive lines. You start to really put pressure on an offensive line, and that benefits the linebackers and the edge rushers. If you can do that, if you can start to really grind on offensive lines in that manner. Not to say that they're going to play that all the time, but who knows? 877-867-1670. Steve, appreciate the email as always. 877-867-1670. This is from Joe. Joe says, what do you think late in the second round or round 3? A guy like Clark out of LSU. I don't know who you're specifically talking about. Are you talking about, what is it? Damon Clark? Damone Clark? I think. If you're talking about the linebacker, I think he's a linebacker. He's projected by many, I think, if I'm not mistaken, to be in that area, a late second, maybe early third round. But are you talking about him like over Leo Chanel? Be more specific. Just give me that. Be a little more specific if you're talking instead of or in addition to. But otherwise, a fast linebacker like he was when he played for the LSU Tigers. I don't know necessarily that he's going to really pan out. I think he'd be better than Oren Burks. That I'll tell you. That I know. But you didn't get much out of Oren Burks. But also at that point in time, with his speed, and I think he was like a 4-5 guy, if I'm not mistaken. With his speed, he'd make also one hell of a special teams player. So you think about it in that way. If you think about it that way, but here's the thing. Are you drafting for the future? Or are you drafting for the now? Or are you just drafting for depth? Because you're talking about 10, 11 players picked up in this draft, depending on if they trade or not. 10, 11 players being picked up in this draft. You got to hit on at least 3. 4 would be outstanding. But you've got to hit on at least 3. And one of those guys you have to hit on has to be a wide receiver. Has to. 877-867-1670. Find us. London and Jones from JBR, but I think it's going to be Wyatt and Karlaftis. Jordan Davis is another one. This one's from maybe trade up and get Thibodeau, Michael says. I want them to stick to the board, draft the best available player, whether it fills a hole or not. It's likely anyone drafted helps this year in a bunch of different ways. They should have done a better job addressing holes before the draft than they did. That's Cody. Cody, you can say that, but it's tough because they were put in a tough situation. They didn't know the money they were going to spend. Yeah, I mean, granted, Aaron Rodgers didn't take a lot of money. He ended up reworking his deal and making it very team-friendly. But you didn't know what you had until you had your quarterback signed, and you couldn't go out and start signing guys while the quarterback was still had that amount of money, that level of money on the books. You were over the salary cap. You had to start cutting guys before you could start adding guys and restructuring salaries. I understand where you're coming from, but this offseason, much like last, for a short window of time, was filled with the drama of will he or will he not? You couldn't do anything until you knew what was going to happen. And then obviously the exodus of Devontae Adams, MVS, and you start getting, like Equanimeous St. Brown, you start to go through that list. It changed the way things look. Where the holes are, I thought they did a good job with. Bringing back Rasul Douglas, bringing back Devondre Campbell. I thought they did a pretty good job filling a hole up front with Jaron Reed. I thought Goody's done a really good job to this point. So when you talk about filling holes, the only hole we know of that's glaring, and you're going to get Elton Jenkins back, so the right tackle position or the right guard, whatever you want to do to manipulate the offensive line, at least that's going to show up. So that's going to be there, at some point. I don't know why I have the hiccups today. But I thought they've done a pretty good job short of the wide receiver position. And even with Sammy Watkins, they're just throwing darts at a dartboard. You're just hoping to catch lightning in a bottle at this point. Our buddy Brett says, any belief in the ESPN report Green Bay likely to wait until round 2 for a receiver? They don't know. Nobody knows. I remember the year that Reggie Bush was coming to Green Bay. And that was like legit rumors. I mean, that was, myself, Lance Allen from TMJ4, Wayne Larrabee, we were all hearing it. And, boy, you talk about a giant smoke screen that flew up that day. Holy mackerel. I mean, that's the thing is a lot of general managers at this time play it really, really, really close to the vest. And you'll start to get agents that will leak out information for their guy talking to someone saying, yeah, this team's really interested in my guy. And they'll do that and spoon feed us that, the media that. So that way the team that they want to go to, or maybe that they have a legitimate interest in, calls them and says, hey, if you're available at this particular time, we're taking you. And he's like, oh, okay, this is what I wanted. Sometimes the agents will do that to try to manipulate their draft capital, so to speak. So to say that this is what's going on, and ESPN reports that the Packers aren't going to take a wide receiver until the second round of the draft. Well, what happens if Chris Olave and Wilson and everybody are just sitting there? What happens if there's a run on offensive linemen and a run on edge rushers and the wide receivers fall right into the lap of the Green Bay Packers? You mean to tell me they're not going to take 2 top quality wide receivers? You take one that's going to contribute now and Williams is going to contribute later? I do that in a heartbeat. So I don't put a lot of stock into it. We'll kind of wait and see. But there is also the thought process of trying to figure out what it is they most likely need, who will fit the system, and who will be able to contribute right away. This draft is really a deciphering of, are you drafting for the future? Are you drafting for the now? Or are you drafting for a guy that can contribute now and be a future player for you for a long, long time to come? Because how polished is polished for some of the guys you're going to go after. Defensively speaking, offensively speaking, when it comes to the trenches, tight end, edge rusher, all that, okay, you kind of get it. You can draft for the future. Wide receiver, you got to get one guy that can come in and contribute right now. Stay tuned. A lot more of the Bill Michaels Show. It's all coming up next.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Bill.
Hand size is
Haven't
everything.
We learned that over the years.
There you go.
It's everything.
So Alec Pierce coming out of Cincinnati is another one that they wanted to see. So Leo Chanel, and then Christian Watson, and then Alec Pierce coming out of Cincinnati. And Christian Watson, a 4-3 guy, 4-4 guy for Alec Pierce, and then Leo Chanel playing the linebacker position. That's who he wanted to see. So there you go. Is there anybody, Ben, that you are concentrating on to say, man, I hope the Green Bay Packers draft this dude?
In the first round, I am all in on George Karlaftis at number 22, the edge from Purdue. I think he's a baller. And I want George Pickens later in the draft. I don't think there's much of a difference between the Pickens level of receivers and the guys that are going to go up top, and maybe separate Jamison Williams. But if the Packers take him, he's not going to play for the team for half the year. And then I wouldn't expect him to come and have this rapport with Rodgers the minute he steps on the field. So that could be the whole regular season. So I want Pickens. I want Karlaftis. I just think the guys you could get at 28, I think are close to those you could get in the early teens. So I'm totally out on packaging and trading up for like Olave.
Yeah. This one is from Kenny. Kenny, by the way, listening to us in Elkhart Lake, which Kenny hope to see up there very soon because we'll be at Road America. He says, what do you think about Trent McDuffie? Love to see him play corner for the Green Bay Packers. The thing about it, when you talk about Trent McDuffie, most of what Washington played was a zone-heavy defense. Packers like to play press man on the outside because they've got quality corners. It's not to say that he couldn't. It's that in Washington, they played more zone than anything. The Packers do play zone, don't get me wrong. But you'd like somebody that's got a lot more press man experience, and Washington didn't play a lot of that. I don't know what he's going to translate to in the NFL, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm sure there's probably people looking at him going, well, he's going to be a fine NFL corner. And he's picked to really go in the first round anyway. But I don't know if he's going to be, if you're talking about what we were discussing earlier in regards to, say Jair, say worst case scenario happens, Jair doesn't sign an extension, Packers let him walk. Is Trent McDuffie the guy to replace Jair? Because Jair is one of the best man-up cover corners in the league. Top 5. Is Trent McDuffie that capable of coming in and being that guy? I don't know if he is coming out of a more zone-oriented defense. So that's just, just my 2 cents worth. 877-867-1670. Find us. I want to hear from you. This is another email, and this is from Devin. Devin says, what do you think about the edge rusher, George? Well, you just actually addressed that. Karlaftis out of Purdue. And obviously solid player. Ben loves the guy. I still think I'm going to say the Packers move up in the draft to get a wide receiver, and it's either going to be tackle or edge rusher with that second pick that they have. If they trade up, they'll give away, obviously, the first and an additional pick down the road, but they'll still have that other pick in the first round. My guess is they're going to take either a tackle or an edge rusher. Coming up in the next hour, don't forget our buddy Mike Clemens is going to be joining us. We are broadcasting live Minneapolis, Minnesota, here at the Ewing Hotel. Thanks to all the staff and management here. But we got another hour of the Bill Michaels Show yet to go. Stay tuned. We got a lot more coming up right after this.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Bucs can close out their first-round series tonight against the Bulls. Milwaukee comes into Game 5 with a 3-1 lead in the series after taking both games in Chicago over the weekend. While the Stars, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Drew Holiday, were very good in those games, it was the other guys stepping up for an injured Chris Middleton that really stood out. That included Grayson Allen dropping 22 points in Game 3 and 27 in Game 4. Holiday says it's what was needed.
You love to see it. I feel like we're this team, we're this family that loves to see each other succeed. Even though it is next man up, we feel like everybody on our team has so much talent. So somebody like Grayson and Pat and even Bobby that really show the world what they bring to the table. We love to see it. I think from every aspect and every corner of our team, we love to see the success.
The Bulls will be shorthanded tonight. Guard Zach LaVine and Alex Caruso going to miss the game. LaVine in the NBA's COVID protocols. Caruso dealing with a concussion. Tip is at 6:30 at Fiserv Forum. The winner of the series going to move on to face Boston in the second round. Meanwhile, Brewers 12-8 winners over Pittsburgh last night. Willie Adames accounted for more than half of those runs, hit a pair of homers, and finished with 7 RBI, which tied the team record. The two teams will face off again tonight out east.
Your work-life balance is important to you, and Sutton Transport agrees. Sutton Transport offers a 5-day work week, same start times daily, and you'll be home nightly and on weekends. Sutton Transport is now hiring CDL drivers and forklift operators for all shifts. Enjoy some of the best benefits in the industry, consistent year-round work, twice-a-year wage increases, and enjoy your family time you deserve. That is work-life balance. The road to success is with Sutton Transport. Apply at suttontrans.com.
Well, the NFL draft gets going tomorrow night in Las Vegas. The Packers have 4 picks in the top 60. Most expect them to use at least one of those on a wide receiver, though edge rusher and the offensive line could also be areas that GM Brian Gutekunst addresses. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
Hour number 4 of the Bill Michaels Show. Glad you're here. Glad you're here. Thanks so much for taking a listen to the program. We're back at it again tomorrow night. Don't forget, for many of you on these same stations, you're going to get our 7 o'clock draft coverage begins. And if you're on a station that doesn't carry us, then you need to go ahead and download the app. Or you can follow me on YouTube. You can follow the show over on the Facebook fan page. Follow us on Twitter, whatever. But go ahead and download that app, and that way you can listen to us anywhere and everywhere. Download it by simply going to WOZN, The Zone in Madison. The Zone Madison, or go to youtube.com/Bill Michaels Show and just subscribe. That's all you need to do. And it'll pop right up, and there you go. We're off and running with 2022 draft coverage. The question, we're going to have Mike Clemens coming up in this hour, by the way, so stay tuned for that. Our good buddy Mike is going to be joining us here in just a little bit. The question is, who do you want to see come into the Green Bay Packers? Who do you want to see them draft with that first draft choice? Or who are you looking for? Who would you like to see the Packers pick up before it's all said and done? Got a bunch of emails, and if you want to hit us up over on the Bud Light live stream, by all means do so. Rick says, I bet from the farm, Goody drafts a D lineman, safety, corner, or O lineman with 22 and 28. I don't expect him to draft a receiver till round 2. I also think they need to draft a running back in the 2nd or 3rd round. Rick, funny you say that. Mark asked me about Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson, the running back out of Alabama. And what am I looking at here? He's 225 pounds, 6'1", Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Went to Hillcrest High School down there. I don't have like a ton of info on the guy, but I do know that he would be first of all, he's going to be a backup to the backup, so to speak. Secondly, he's got, as they put it, good cutting ability, good vision, hits the hole hard, not afraid to take a hit, and not afraid to deliver a hit. He is not good at getting outside, doesn't have the burst of speed to be able to get around the edge as quick as some others, more of a north-south runner. So that's kind of the knock on him. He was a redshirt senior coming out of Alabama, but he does have the size to be a bruiser at times, needs to add a few pounds, and if he does, he's also going to be a good wide receiver. I shouldn't say wide receiver, good receiver coming out of the backfield, has good hands. So that's Brian Robinson Jr. I don't know a lot about him. That's kind of an obscure type of pick. I've looked at a little bit on him, but I don't know a ton about him. So I apologize, but I would not expect him. And running back like that, that'd be probably a 3rd, 4th round pick, maybe. He's not even listed in the top 5 when you go to our lads. Maybe he's 5. but he's not even the top 5 running back. You've got guys like Spiller out of Texas A&M, Pierce out of Florida that you could be looking at. Who else am I thinking about here? Kenneth Walker, the kid out of Michigan State. I forgot about Breece Hall out of Iowa State. Those are the guys that are all ranked really high when it comes to running backs coming out of the draft. I think Robinson's probably in that mix, but I don't think he's in the top 4 or 5 guys. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Larry says Traylon Burks at 22, then trade back at 28, or some dumb team can jump up and grab a quarterback at that point. Some dumb team. There you go.
What does your ideal Thursday night look like? Minus the show going smoothly and us all having a lot of fun.
I would love to see either Olave or Traylon Burks fall to the Packers. Because, I mean, in a perfect world, you get like a Drake London, a Garrett Wilson, one of those guys that are highly rated. Drake London is rated so highly because he's ready. He's like ready to go now. Some of the other guys have all the intangibles and have those speed and all that, but they're not the complete player Drake London is. I know Charch said that he thought Drake London would fall to the Packers. I don't see it happening. I think Drake London's gone unless the Packers trade up to get him. So for that, I'd like to see a guy like Drake London. Okay. Then probably if I had to go in the, the next level, so to speak, if I'm going to go with offensive tackle, that's probably where I'd want to go. I'd love to see Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa, because I don't think Cross out of Mississippi State or Neal out of Alabama, those guys, I don't think those guys are going to be available. Maybe Penning out of Northern Iowa, maybe Rainman out of Central Michigan. I wish there were guys coming out of bigger programs. We heard about Falele, the kid coming out of Minnesota. That he's a road grader. He's not finesse when it comes to pass blocking. I'd love to see the road grader, but I don't think in a pass-first offense with what Aaron Rodgers likes to do, and as many times as he's given the ability to audible out of a run into a pass, I don't know if you want a guy that's more astute at run blocking than he is at pass blocking. So Falele out of Minnesota, I think is a big, wide road grading body, but I don't know that the Packers would pick him up. I'd probably look at more of the Trevor Penning coming out of Northern Iowa. So those two guys would kind of fill some needs for the Packers on the first round of the draft. I'd look at that and say that's a B+ draft for the Green Bay Packers. That's what I would like to see. Or what I think is going to happen, they're going to trade up to get a wide receiver and then maybe trade out of that first round if a guy that they value isn't there or has a second round grade. Then you trade back and get additional picks for what you just gave up. That's what I would probably see happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know. Grant and I talked about this a lot on Monday. I think the only thing I don't want the Packers to do, aside from take a quarterback, is trade up for one of the wide receivers. Like, I like the guys up top, but I don't see much of a difference between them and Pickens or Traylon Burks or any of the guys, Jahan Dotson.
I agree. If they're available, unless you got a guy that you really believe is the guy, I agree. Stand pat. Unless, of course, say there's a run early. Now, if there's a run early, then it's a whole different scenario. Because if you lose London and you lose Wilson and Traylon Burks is gone, Jahan Dotson's gone, Chris Olave's gone, Jameis Wilson's gone, well, then maybe you're looking at, oh, my goodness, we need to go after Pickens or Mechie or David Bell or, Justin Ross or one of those guys. Then you start to say, oh, my God, here comes panic, But I agree. I don't think you need to trade up to get a guy unless you absolutely feel that guy is going to perfectly fit your system and he's smart enough to get it and smart enough to get on the same page early on with Aaron Rodgers. That's the only way I could see trading up. So I agree with you. Quarterbacks, though, good God. The whole thing about whether or not you're going to see 2 or 3 or 4 quarterbacks take. I saw somebody had put it up earlier with ESPN saying there could be up to 5 quarterbacks take. Who? There's Kenny Pickett and Matt Corral. After that, Malik Willis is out of Liberty. He's a guy that, a lot of people like. I get it. Maybe 3. You're not going with Sam Howell. Desmond Ritter's not a first-round guy. As much as I thought he played extremely well this past season at Cincinnati, he's not going first round. Carson Strong out of Nevada, come on, that's not happening. Not even Jack Cohn out of Notre Dame, even though he's listed as one of the top 10 quarterbacks. He's not going in the first round. So who are you going to take in the first round other than Pickett, Corral, Malik Willis? Nobody.
Well, today and tomorrow are also the Super Bowls for agents to give BS to media members.
Correct.
Like every leak I see, I look at it and say, oh, yeah, that obviously is not true.
That's an agent. Yeah, that's an agent. Agent or a GM that's throwing something completely stupid out there just to see if somebody's going to bite on it. But most people will tell you that's inside the walls of a war room at this point was, labeled that their boards are set. They know what they're doing. This whole thing, they're not leaking stuff out, and I'll tell you this. I know that going back to when Ron Wolf was here, Ron Wolf would talk and he'd give you insight. You'd kind of see the direction that he wanted to go. Ted Thompson, God forbid you leaked anything out about Ted Thompson's draft. You would not have a job. You would, because Ted didn't even tell everybody what he was thinking. There were times when Ted made picks, guys were looking at him like, what the hell? We didn't even talk about that. Because Ted wanted to be the smartest guy in the room. So Ted didn't leave his board and his draft picks up to anybody. He had his scouts do their work. Ted loved to go out and scout. That was his forte. And then to go out and find the diamond in the rough. The problem was towards the end, he tried to get too cute. He tried to be smarter than everybody. He tried to find all of those diamonds in the rough and the Brady Papingas of the world that were going to come in and contribute and give you this burst. And then, they weren't going to cost you much money. And he was going to say, see, I told you. And he got too cute. But yeah, this time of year, general managers, they're not giving up anything at this point. Rick says, I also expect Aaron Jones' role is going to change a little bit, more of a Deebo Samuel player. Being he's getting old for running back, I think they need another quick guy rather than a bruiser. Dan says, what about the Michael Thomas or the Metcalf trade on draft day? Is that likely? That's a great question. I don't think so. I thought if there was going to be a trade, you would have it by now for DK Metcalf because they would want draft choices right now. Now, maybe somebody gets desperate and climbs the board and decides, hey, DK Metcalf is worth more than just a 1 and a 3 and a 4. Like he's all of a sudden worth a 1 and a future 1 and a 2 and, maybe somebody falls in their head. But no, I thought the DK Metcalf stuff would have been taken care of prior to this week. I thought, whatever team would have traded for him would have given up draft capital. Therefore, you kind of reset your board as the Seahawks would go. But they've stood steadfast in saying he is not for sale. We're not getting rid of him. He's going to be our future. And so I never say never, but I don't think it's going to happen. Never say never, but I don't think it's going to happen. 877-867-1670, this portion of the program, brought to you by The Nice Ash, downtown Waukesha, 323 West Main Street. Hey, if you're going to go out and watch the NFL draft, maybe have a good cigar, a victory cigar after the Packers' choice. Check out the draft and all the options that they have down there on the big screen TVs. The Nice Ash, not to mention the selection of whiskeys, bourbons, all that kind of good stuff that they have down there. Really good stuff. Check it out. Scotches down there at theniceash.com, 323 West Main Street, downtown Waukesha. Stay tuned. Mike Clemens up next on The Bill Michaels Show.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket, this is The Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Buy more, save more with a patio door.
Wait, what?
Right now, at Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin, the more windows you buy, the more you'll be saving by adding a patio door.
Miss Della from Pella?
Please, call me Gina.
Okay, Gina Della from Pella? Like, I was told there'd be no math.
Like, that's okay. Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin makes it easy. Now through April 30th, when you buy 3 Pella windows, you'll save $500 when you add a patio door. Buy 6, save $1,000 with a patio door. Buy a dozen Pella windows, save $2,000 when you...
Add a patio door?
Correct. And along with 6 full lines of windows, traditional to contemporary, Pella of Wisconsin has financing to fit most any budget.
Awesome.
Buy more, save more with a patio door, but only through April 30th. Set your free consultation today at PellaWI.com.
Certain restrictions apply. See showroom for details.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
It's funny you say that because this is like one of the more of the stuff has been surrounding the fact that I'm on the Raiders now. You know, everybody's saying congrats on being on the Raiders. It hasn't been congrats on $140 million. It's been congrats. You get to play for a team, you know, you grew up loving, to have this type of security, to be a place where they're happy to have you and give you all that money. I mean, it's just a bonus.
Welcome back. Tay getting all the money. No doubt about it. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends over there in Albanese's Roadhouse. You're looking for good Italian food out in the western portion of Milwaukee, out in the Waukesha area. Stop it. And Joey's still looking for some people that want to participate in the bocce ball league. So stop out to Albanese's Roadhouse. Good people, great place, all kinds of good stuff out there. Joining us now on the hotline, our good buddy Mike Clemens is here. And Michael, The draft is now upon us. We all know that they need a wide receiver or 2 or 5, depending on how many it's going to take to get the job done. But, give me your thoughts, man. What's going on?
Well, I think the need is going to be at wide receiver, but I also think it could be offensive line. Maybe it could be another linebacker to fill in with Zadarius, the spot that he's leaving open. Maybe it's a safety because, this is a team that every year, particularly in their first and second round, they know that there's a veteran that's going to move on or already did move on in free agency, and they need to get a guy ready so that in a year or 2 from now, he's the next starter for the next 6 or 7 years. And that's the way they look at the draft. They're not building the draft to get them through September. They're looking for the draft to build them on for the next 3 or 4 years for the next era. Like when you know that Corey Linsley is playing great, but he's got a multitude of injuries, and then you just know he's going to get big money someplace else, and in fact he signs with the Chargers, and everybody says, all right, I guess the plan is to have Lucas Patrick play center. No, the plan is to get another center, and you get the big kid out of Ohio State and Josh Myers, and a second rounder, and he's going to be, the next heir apparent for center for the next 7 or 8 years through the next 2 contracts. That's the way these guys are going to approach that board. So over the weekend, they set up their board. Brian Gutekunst put it all in order, and then he goes through the scenarios and the crazy offers they might get from other teams because they're sitting on all these picks, 11 picks. And let's go back to that moment after they suddenly end up trading Davante Adams to the Raiders. We asked Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur at the NFL meetings down in Florida, how did you manage to get Aaron Rodgers to come back another year and let Davante and end up trading Davante Adams?
Yeah, I think those are kind of 2 separate situations, but I think in this particular case, it's like everything. I talk about the dominoes all the time, and there were some dominoes that were important to us that if we continued on the road we were, it was going to be difficult to put the team we wanted to put around Aaron and everybody. So I think 2 different situations, but we wish him the best and his family the best, and I think that ultimately this is what he wanted.
Those decisions are never easy to make. Unfortunately, it was one that we had to come to. I think a lot of it was driven by Davante, I would tell you. There's no sense in looking back on it. It's just we're moving forward. So, and we appreciate everything he's done. Obviously, it's a lot to replace in terms of the production and the type of leader that he was for us. But again, it was just one of those deals that you never want to make, but unfortunately, sometimes you have to.
I have found it interesting, Mike, in that comment, Matt LaFleur made a point to say most of it was driven by Davante, as if to say, we wanted him back. He just didn't want to come back. We can't go back on this. He just didn't want to come back. So he made a point to make that out, to put that out there.
Right. And that fills in the gaps like you've talked about on the show. The fact is, by the time they got into training camp last summer, and everything was, let's get the quarterback first. And as Gutekunst said right there, then the rest of the dominoes fall into place. Davante Adams said, what about me? I mean, he wanted to get paid at the start of camp last year. Then he just focused on, the last dance. Him and Rodgers, let's both have great seasons. Let's both get paid, which they both did. $200 million for Aaron and $140 for Davante. But Davante just said, you know what? It's time for me to move on and move to Vegas and closer to family and play with Derek, and just I need a new situation. And it was just that kind of a change, and he got everything that he wanted. Instead of coming back here and trying once again the Green Bay way to get a Super Bowl, at least he got his paycheck, and who knows what happens with the Raiders. So the next situation for Brian Gutekunst is that when we talked to him on Monday this week, now the reality setting in about replacing guys. And for the last 4 or 5 years, I mean, remember the season when Davante went down with injury and was gone for a month, and they actually won all 4 of those games. I think they were actually 7-0 when Davante missed with injuries in the last 3 or 4 years. People were saying, look at this Aaron Rodgers. Seriously, Alan Lazard is his number 1 tonight? Or, if you go back to years back with Jared Abbrederis, and Jeff Janis in a playoff game, like the team has never really done enough to get Aaron Rodgers weapons at the top of the draft. And so Gutekunst was asked about, what are you going to do? He was joking. What are you going to do to replace Devontae Adams and MVS at wide receiver? Because, you've got this drought.
For a while now. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think we got a pretty good quarterback, and that helps, significantly. So, I think certainly there's going to be probably more opportunity for that young player if we happen to go that route to come in and have some opportunities, So, it's not something that around here that we've had a lot of that, I think way back early in my career, we drafted Javon, with the first pick. And I think it was about middle of year 2 where he just took off, and then for about a year and a half there, he was playing about as good as anyone. So that was kind of the rule of thumb back then. It took about a year and a half to really get into where they knew what was going on. I think, again, hopefully it'll be quicker if we go that route this year. But, I think to your point, I think when Tay came in, certainly having those guys ahead of him was a challenge for him to get the opportunities, or maybe this time it won't be as big of a challenge. But I will say we got some pretty good players in the building that I think are very eager for their opportunity, which maybe they haven't had yet.
Mike, we know they need wide receivers. One of the other things that was mentioned was, tackle. Billy Turner's gone. You're going to need a right tackle. We assume Elton Jenkins is going to be back, and he could take over that role, certainly. But you'd like to find a pure right tackle and then move Elton Jenkins back in, solidify that line, and be one of the best lines in football if they can do it.
Yeah, and that's a thing that I had there on the agenda. I wanted to skip over that Stanovich cut. But that's another thing to bring up, Bill, is the rash of ACLs this team has had, right? I mean, starting with David Bakhtiari, and then you've got Robert Tonyan at tight end. He goes down with one in the middle of the season. And these ACLs, it's not like Adrian Peterson when he'd come back in 9 months. It takes a year. And a lot of these guys say it takes another year after that. Like Josiah Deguara, it took him 2 or 3 months last year to really start finding the groove that he had in his rookie season before he went down week 5. So when you look at the tight end position, and you got Tonyan coming back from an ACL, maybe he'll be ready really in September, October. And you got 37, 38-year-old Mercedes Lewis. Josiah Deguara, he's an okay third rounder. Then it's Tyler Davis and Dominic Daphne. They're short at tight end. So, it's Gutekunst who brought up the fact the other day that when you talk about receiver, we might have a need at tight end as well.
The tight end position has always been one of the toughest ones because it's just you have to know the whole offense, right? The run game, the blocking schemes, and certainly the passing game as well. I do think that when guys come, where they come from and what they've been exposed to has, a significant impact on how maybe they come into the league, and how quickly they get up to speed. But I think around here, you guys know, our history here with receivers specifically. In the second round and stuff. So I think that's always part of the equation. I think it's really good. And Ted always used to say you got to have some pass catchers around here. And that's whether that's tight ends, running backs, receivers, you got to have guys who can catch the ball. So I think certainly that's a big part of how we look to build our team. But I do think the guys that come from more pro-ready systems have it a little bit easier. But again, like we talk about a lot, and I know you guys have heard me say this, our philosophy on the draft is very much a long-term decision, not short-term.
Let's do this. We'll step away, take a quick break. We're talking NFL draft, talking Packers. Mike Clemens joining us on the hotline. We are broadcasting live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at the Social House, renovating over there. Dan Della and the staff say, come on in. They're open during the renovation. The kitchen has been expanded. The kitchen's got a full menu going now. So they're back to, a lot of that's back to normal. The patio's getting ready to open, and the facelift is almost all but complete. Stop into the Social House, HAUS, over there on Lisbon Road in Menominee Falls. Stay tuned. More of the Bill Michaels Show coming up next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Well, I'm gonna start by saying this isn't easy. What we do is not easy, and for anybody to think that you can just walk into a place and become great, like it's a process. It's a process, and like you want to talk about Tay. There was a lot of people sitting in this room when Tay cut, talking about Tay was going to be cut. If y'all remember that, so just give it time.
Those are the words of Randall Cobb talking about, hey, it's not easy, but it can be done, and guys can become great. Davante Adams did not have the best of starts to his career. But the problem is you can't afford to nurse somebody along at this point. You got to have somebody that's going to become an impact player almost immediately to take over the wide receiver position, along with Alan Lazard, Amari Rodgers, Randall Cobb, to name a few. Joining us on the hotline, our buddy Mike Clemens is back with us. So, Mike, I guess one of the guys that's going to have a lot of pressure on him is going to be the wide receiver coach, Jason Vrabel, because he's got to, whoever comes in and how many ever come in, he's got to get them up to speed almost immediately, and he may not have to be able to do it with Aaron Rodgers even in the house.
Right, and Bill, the Packers coaches, though, will tell you, guys like Jamar Chase last year for the rookie season he had, those are few and far between. It was great that he could hook up with his college quarterback as well, who had a year or two in the league. But for the most part, it doesn't matter who you are. It's going to take a while to bring these guys along. Now, Jason Vrabel, before coach of the Buffalo Bills, along with Nathaniel Hackett, that's one of the reasons he was able to come along the stream to Green Bay when LaFleur takes over in Green Bay. And he was there when they brought in Sammy Watkins, who's now, your answer for Davante, at least the next year or so. And they're about the same age. So Vrabel talked about that topic about, hey, even if we do take some receivers in the first round, it's going to take a while.
The biggest thing is you got to, feel good about the playbook, know the ins and outs, know the audible system, know why we're doing things. And that just takes some time. Obviously, a couple of those wideouts in the top end of the class last year performed really well, right? It's accumulation of things. I also just think that when you go onto the field to be confident, and that's the hardest part, of getting a guy to truly walk out there and look across from him and see Jair and truly believe in yourself, like, I can beat this guy one-on-one. Not only do I know my route, I know the details of it, but then I got to beat a guy who is a dominating force on the opposing side of the ball. And typically every team has an elite corner. So you're going up against guys that, you just got to have that confidence. And I think that for some guys takes a little bit more time than others. And you look back at Davante and, I drafted Sammy in that class, and there's other guys, and Sammy was a great player. But I think Davante was a two-star coming out who continued to develop and progress, right? He was maybe the 6th receiver drafted. It was a continued climb, right? And he got his confidence there. He learned the playbook. He learned what Aaron was looking for, maybe what the staffs were looking for. And so it's just a gradual growth, and every day just trying a way to get 1% better.
So, Mike, we talked about Randall Cobb. We talked about, Alan Lazard. Where does Amari Rodgers fall into all of this? Because he kind of just got washed away last year with the return of Randall Cobb at that slot position. How good is he? Do we even know?
Exactly. And he looked so sharp during those OTAs and mini camps last spring with Jordan Love and all the reps he was getting, because a lot of those veteran receivers didn't show up to the voluntary sessions, kind of a solidarity with Aaron Rodgers, right, and Davante. But then you got into camp and he started to fall behind a little bit. He got hurt a little bit earlier in the season, and then he was just like pretty much put on the shelf. And, you used a high draft pick on him. And I think that, okay, Davante Adams is a huge loss. That moves on. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, they set a price limit as to what they were going to give him, and the Chiefs paid crazy free agent money, so he's off the board. I was a little surprised that Equanimeous St. Brown walked out the door, only because they were using him in special teams. And, he's a pretty smart kid. And I thought that he could have been like a backup to Lazard, to that style. But that brings up another point. This team might have the next Alan Lazard in that depth chart. Jawan Winfrey looked really good in camp. He could probably fill in the role of MVS almost as fast. And then they got 3 or 4 other guys that, trust me, we haven't heard of, we haven't seen, but they were brought in late in the season, as part of their reserves. And maybe one of those guys will emerge like Lazard did. But then you got Amari Rodgers, a draft pick. And so you ask Vrabel, how's that kid coming along?
Yeah, just like I talked about the confidence, I think that's the biggest thing for him is how can you go out there and just believe in yourself the way you did when you were at Clemson? because just being like tough or maybe like, being in there, that's all good and stuff, but you got to learn your physical skill set, learn how to get open, create separation. And like I said, there's, we have a standard in our room of like what we're looking for on routes, of just knowing those details inside and out. And he's got to play faster. He has to play, with more confidence. And I think, this offseason, he told me the other day, he's in great shape, best of his life. And we were talking for a while, and he said he really feels like, after last year, he was kind of on the world tour of the circuits and this and that. And then, he came off the ACL. He said just everything was like a whirlwind, and he really feels comfortable in his own skin. So I think he's going to take a big step, but he's going to have to put in the work, and I'm really excited about him.
Well, let's hope that he takes that next step, because they're going to need him for sure as another weapon. The other we go back to time and again is the offensive line. Defense we can get into eventually, but Mike, I know that the question becomes, Billy Turner, not Billy Turner. Elton Jenkins is coming back, but Yosh Nijman did a yeoman's work over at the left tackle position. But how deep are they on an offensive line?
You've got these guys coming back from torn ACLs, and that's the problem that I had with the 49ers tape. Besides the obvious, like the blocked punt and the score by the 49ers, Aaron Rodgers missing Lazard, throwing to Devontae at the end of the game, those miscues, not getting more points on the board. The thing I didn't understand about that game was you had 2 weeks to lead up to the playoff game against the 49ers, and suddenly these guys have been out 8-9 weeks or the whole season, like Billy Turner with the knee injury for 8 weeks, like Whitney Merciless with the torn bicep. They let him get back in the game. Or Jair Alexander, his first game with the bad shoulder. Or even Zadarius Smith. You're taking guys off the field that had just played the last 7 or 8 weeks and got you to the playoffs, like Yosh Nijman at left tackle. So we asked Adam Stenovich, who was the offensive line coach who made that decision. He's now your offensive coordinator. And I talked to LaFleur about this at the end of season presser. I said, how many practices did Billy Turner get coming back from that knee? Those whole 2 weeks? No, he came back Wednesday. So that guy was out for 8 weeks with a knee. He only got 3 practices before the playoff game against Nick Bosa and that crowd from the 49ers. And Adam Stenovich was asked, why did you start Billy Turner left tackle against the 49ers instead of Yosh Nijman?
I think just going with the most experienced guys, and kind of my perspective on the whole thing was going with the most experienced, toughest, hard-nosed guys for that kind of a game, just the kind of game it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a pretty good slugfest. And so that was my decision as an offensive line coach at the time, and I think everyone was on board with it. And, yeah, it is what it is.
Didn't turn out great, obviously. And then there is the question mark about David Bakhtiari coming back this season. We all know that, we all read that article off of Cheesehead TV about getting the fluid drained and all that kind of stuff. You just hope that he's ready to go as well.
Every week for 15 weeks and having to have a second surgery. So when you ask Stenovich, how's Bakhtiari looking? I wasn't not blown away by the answer. Here's what he said.
He's working hard. I have had several conversations with him, and he's just making sure that he's ready to go. Working hard, rehabbing, doing all that stuff, working out, and he's in a good place.
Yeah, that doesn't bode a lot of confidence, does it?
No, I mean, you turn and look at the other guys like, uh-oh.
Right.
And that was not a solid. Oh, he's great. Now he's back 100%. Now he's working at it. That's what they told us every week last year during the season.
Right. Defensively speaking, I did want to get to that. So Devondre Campbell comes back. He resigns. They bring back Rasul Douglas, all that kind of good stuff. But Devondre Campbell was a big impact player. When we were talking with Paul Charchian earlier today, man, he was just raving about finding that diamond in the rough, that Devondre Campbell playing free and playing in a system that he really enjoys, how much he excelled last year.
And the point of that story also is this. I want fans to understand, Gutekunst is pretty good at this, man. I mean, we knew that he needed help at inside linebacker. He told me, actually, he'd been looking at Devondre Campbell the year before, but they were unable to lock him up. And then when there was an opportunity in free agency, like last May or June, they signed him. And this guy ends up being an all-pro for them. Or you talk about in the middle of the season, Jair goes down. Now you need to pick up a corner, and Rasul Douglas just so there's a chance to take care of this offensive line, wide receiver problems with guys you can still pick up later on between now or sometime in training camp, and they can take off just like Rasul Douglas or Devondre Campbell. And Devondre was asked, how come Matt LaFleur was like, I mean, he had early praise for him last summer in training camp.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know I've known Matt since my rookie year. You know, like he was on the staff when I was in Atlanta, and I used to talk to him every day. So, you know, coming here was a pretty easy decision. You know, the process took a couple weeks. Like we were talking for 2 or 3 weeks before I finally signed. But, you know, I was just trying to put myself in the best situation possible, you know, because a lot of people don't know the type of player I am, and that's okay. It's a lot of us in the league, but, you know, just the whole general idea of like, I've like people consider me an average player. I've always felt like I've been a great player, but opportunity is everything. You know, like I had one job responsibility here that allowed me to excel week in and week out rather than going into a game plan where you're playing 3 or 4 different positions. And I mean, I was able to do it well, but, you know, it eventually takes a toll on you. So I just wanted to put myself in the best position to showcase my talents on a weekly basis.
Which, you know, again, I think he had just a world of difference when it comes to playing the middle linebacking position and really seeing a true middle linebacker play extremely well, fill the hole, play back in coverage, all that kind of stuff we just haven't seen consistently here in Green Bay. The other thing, Mike, I wanted to mention to you, and I know I texted you this, Zadarius Smith says hi. I saw him yesterday over at Mall of America.
Well, and he's loving that. I mean, he's in the Twin Cities, much bigger mall than he can find on Oneida down the street from the
Well, that's
mall
true.
in Green Bay, you know. But, you know, what's going on here, Bill, is that Sammy Watkins worked with Jason Vrabel, the wide receivers coach, once before. Devondre Campbell worked with your head coach once before in Atlanta. In other words, you find a lot of these connections, and we are used to the last 15 or 20 years in Green Bay. When they bring in these free agents, it's possible these 25 coaches that LaFleur's got working for him now, these guys worked with this player somewhere else. There's a connection there. Now, that comes to Zadarius, great player, but here's why the Packers didn't bring him back. He made this announcement when he signed with the Vikings.
I kind of felt something when I was in the weight room, and it was my lower back. So what I did was I went and did an MRI, and they was like, you know, it's a bulging disc. You know, a lot of people have it. You know, a lot of athletes have bulging discs. So what they said with my bulging disc was it was a little bit bigger than normal, you know. So what I did was went to L.A., got it done with my doctor, man, one of the best doctors out there, completed the surgery. I don't know too many people coming back from back surgery, but I came back in 4 months, got a chance to practice for 3 weeks before that playoff game. And as you can see, I'm healthy as ever.
They are probably going to pick up another edge rusher at some point in this draft, Mike, you would assume, just to replace that roster spot that was vacated by Zadarius Smith for the edge. Yeah,
and of all the mock drafts, they've got edge guys going in the first 2 or 3 picks this year. It's deep in that. So maybe there'll be one that drops up, or maybe even the Packers would trade up. And so Preston Smith, who got a new contract, was asked, what would you think if the Packers used a high draft pick on another outside linebacker?
I don't know. You know, the draft is really unpredictable. They always have a mock draft, and they always have a lot of wrong ones. So, I mean, I don't know. You know, the more weapons you have, you can never go wrong with. You know, like I legally own like 20-something guns. It's never nothing too bad with having too many weapons. You never know when you're going to need them, you know? So it's always a good thing to have more weapons. The more weapons you got, you're always ready and equipped for whatever's to come. So, you know, that's how you never feel that, you know? You always have nothing wrong with having too many weapons on the field and off the field.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay. On that note, let's do this. We'll step away a little bit later. Let's take a break. Mike Clemens joining us. Final segment of the Bill Michaels Show coming up next.
Ready? This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The cars are running. Get your ticket to see them scream around the road course in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. For event information, go to roadamerica.com. That is roadamerica.com.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
It was, well, I mean, it was, especially when you start getting close, because you sit there for 2 hours and you don't even want to look at the names because you think you're going to jinx something, you know. But then as it started getting closer, then you look up there and you go, what? Wouldn't that be nice, you know? But I can't talk about it. I'm not going to, I never mentioned it to anybody else in the room. So you don't want to jinx yourself and all that. So it's silly.
Very superstitious.
Well, all right. Some of Ted's pressers were great because you weren't sure what the hell he was talking about as he would go on. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Boondocks Barbecue and Brew. All you got to do is stop out Highway K in Oconomowoc. Great people. Tom and his staff, top notch, and a great place to go and watch games. Sit there at a huge bar area. Sit there, enjoy yourself, some appetizers, some food, get a couple of good beverages, and check out a good game, whether it's the Bucks coming up tonight, Brewers, what have you. Good stuff. Boondocks Barbecue and Brew out there on County Road K in Oconomowoc. So, Mike, before we get out of here, going back to the Ted Thompson era, I was just mentioning this earlier. Ted didn't, I mean, if you leaked anything out of Ted, remember when it was supposed to be Reggie Bush that was coming here? It was a done deal. Everybody thought so. Ted doesn't, he's poker face, man.
Poker face, and also like this rumor, that Aaron Nagler reported that this is actually past tense, that maybe the Packers made a run at Darren Waller, the Raiders tight end. Maybe that happened a few weeks ago, but I caution. This is the week of misinformation, and that was perfectly timed and planted at the right person. That's like, well, that might be right. So we'll see if any of that comes true. But the thing about Ted was inducted into the Packers Hall of Fame. That was his last public appearance. Passed away about a year and a half after that from this ongoing neurological disorder. But I got a chance to get on a conference call with Mark Murphy and Brian Gutekunst, and I said to those guys, you guys said at that Hall of Fame banquet that on draft night, Ted had a poker face. And here's what Murphy said.
Well, Brian can speak to that a lot better than I, but I will stand with that. I would never want to play poker against Ted. He had the ability to, well, I think he played a lot of games with the board itself. Didn't he, Brian?
Yeah, he sure did. I don't want to give too many secrets away because we certainly continue to do some of those things, but he would bury guys on the draft board that he really, really liked, and he knew that when draft day came that they would be 2 or 3 rounds higher than where they sat all spring long. And for those of us that had been around for a while, that was always our goal, was to figure out which one of those players were there. And I think a great story for me, I think the first time that I really pegged it was Jordy Nelson, and we kept watching tape, and we kept talking about how good this player was, and he never would move him, and he never would move him. And that's when all of a sudden they just like, okay, I got it. And which made me really surprised when we traded back out of the first round, because I knew how much he coveted Jordy. And but I think he knew that what he was doing, and he knew he could get the player that he wanted all along. But he always had 2 or 3 guys every year that he kept buried that I think was just for him. He, in my opinion, is the best talent evaluator, especially when it comes to the draft, that I've ever seen or been around. He just had a very unique way of seeing what a player was going to become and the greatness he could become. And there's 1,000 players but like Nick Collins comes to mind. I mean, I scouted Nick Collins at Bethune-Cookman, and that's a very small school. And Ted, identifying the greatness that was in a guy like Nick Collins, that's not at an Alabama or a Power 5 school. I think he had a rare ability to do that, and not many people that come through our league have that.
So, Mike, tomorrow night we're hoping that Gutekunst can have that, and we're hoping that Gutekunst kind of picks up where Ted left off, but they need a wide receiver. So you're going to be in Green Bay covering anything and everything that is the Green Bay Packers tomorrow night, correct?
All weekend long. Headed up there this afternoon. I'll be there all through Sunday, and hopefully they could take a Traylon Burks out of Arkansas, or get that Sky Moore kid out of Western Michigan that's got the 4.1 speed that James Jones has been beating on the table for, and in fact, get some help in that wide receiver room in the draft.
Mike, great stuff. We'll talk to you tomorrow night, okay?
Thank you, Bill. We'll talk to you then.
See you, buddy. There you go. That's it. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Central Time on many of these same stations, you are going to get us with the NFL Draft. First pick coverage all the way through the end of the first round of the NFL Draft. Mike's going to be in Green Bay. I am going to be back in the home studios. We got Ben Kenny out in our studios in Madison, and hopefully you are here enjoying the program as well. Again, tomorrow night, don't forget, and if you're not getting us on one of your local stations, download the Zone app out of Madison, the Zone Madison, and you can get the app there. Thanks to everybody at the Hewing Hotel here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. It has been a terrific experience. These people are great. Beautiful, stunning hotel. Very modern yet rustic, eclectic. And I couldn't recommend it more if I had to. So until we talk again, which will be tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, Ben Kenny in for me tomorrow. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Don't forget